Allegiance, please join.
I pledge allegiance to
to
the flag of the United States of America and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a few people sitting out in the audience. Here physically, is there anyone who wishes to address us? Come on board.
Bert Wade, 9 North Ferry Road. So a couple of things. First, I wanted to shout out to the Rams Head Inn for taking the high school kids National Honor Society and giving them a nice luncheon, and they comped the kids and gave the parents a wonderful afternoon. And the next thing, I was wondering if Steve Kiley called in, looking for his glasses. I have them. If he calls in again, he can get in touch with me.
Thank you for the humor.
Okay, yeah, I'll try to do that in a minute. So the other things, I just wanted to talk about an LWRP, because you're talking about the dock code, and Gordon was talking about a planner. So, a planner or a manager for the town or something. So I was just curious about if that would be in something that the planner would do, or is this planner idea that Gordon has, which is tier 1 in your priority list, a permanent position, or is it a consultant? So there's just open questions that I have about that. So the LWRP, which would address a lot of the things that you're trying to.
And just for the public, that's in
Local waterways revitalization plan, and if you search in.
local waterfront revitals.
Waterfront?
Yep.
Yeah, okay, waterfront. So if you Google it, you'll see that it talks about a lot of the things that you're trying to put into the dock code about. Here it talks about suitable activities or locations where the WMAC took a negative view, saying unsuitable things. You could also say what's suitable. I think just a little bit of history, what I recall when Glenn was on the town board, Glenn Waddington, he rejected the idea of doing a local, an LWRP. And I think it was caught up in the kind of concept of local control. And it said, the idea was that we didn't need to go to the state for anything, and that why do it? Kind of redundant. But I think when you look at the dock code, and you also still have the comprehensive plan on your plate, so it'd be something to consider how that could fold in. So I'll keep it at that right now. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the physical audience? Anyone on Zoom? We will go into our second agenda item, which is the Artist Lane Stewardship Plan. And we have Kathy Twenty here from the Community Preservation Fund to go walk us through it and present it to us.
Good afternoon. The Artist Lane, I think this has been circulated to the town board. It's a beautiful 20.1 acres. We discussed really at great length with Carl Sprague Local, one of the transfers, about signage, about different trails we're putting in there, and signage. There'd be no hunting there except bow hunting. We've also had extensive conversations with Carla as well as Bo about what would be permitted, and attached to this plan is the deer management plan that Bo and Carla and the committee agreed on. Most of the property is actually already pretty much cleared. There is a discussion now, and I think it was Joe Denny discussed with Ken, putting some more paths down on the water side of the property. There is one change since I submitted at least the December 9th plan to you. I had neglected to include the transfers, the names of the transfers. So I'm just suggesting a change, the first sentence that would read, In 2022, the town of Shelter Island in Suffolk County jointly purchased 24 acres, 5 lots from Carl White Fravel, George C. White, Elizabeth P. White, Burton C. White, Burton H. White, and White 456 LLC. And to that, I have to also add one more name, which is Carla's sister, which is Grace White Orletti. And the rest of the document reads as that we've transferred it to. It's called Artist Lane in recognition of the white artists that lived there since the early 1930s.
How did this, I think it's being put back on the agenda for next week's CPF committee meeting. I thought I saw something fly by in emails. Do you know?
This?
Yes. And I wasn't sure, like, do you know why it's going back to committee?
Probably because they're discussing the trails, maybe. I didn't see that here. Is that for our meeting next week?
Yes, I'm trying to find it now quickly, but.
It has to be probably the trails. The other thing is signage is utmost important in this property because it's surrounded by private property and we don't want to interfere with their own ownership. So we are in the process, Suffolk County has to make those signs. And we are also getting, Gordon had gotten these arrow signs, which we're going to be putting around them. We're just putting in Suffolk County signage.
And on the picture that's provided in here, I think at one point there was concern about the connection between those two properties. There really is none? Yeah, is there a connection just when people are walking the path?
We have an easement to get to them.
Okay, so,
This is the one that Carla, I think I mentioned to you, Carla objected to. And we've looked at our maps and she's correct. So we're now going to make the path
okay,
this way. And then this yellow is the new path that Joe was talking to Ken about.
okay, yeah, you have a different, yeah, I was gonna say you have a
Well, this
different
is
map
the
than we
latest
have.
because he's just talking about,
Okay,
no, this one.
yeah, because we all picked up just
Carla,
this one.
Carla crossed this out, which she was right to do. And now we're going to put a path that goes this way, which we already have. We're just going to mark this private. Yes, the Man Creek, not the road. And then we're going to put path along the water here.
Okay, lovely.
All right, so there's a meeting next week, I guess if there's any changes, because normally we adopt these stewardship plans by resolution. So maybe what we'll do is after that, if there's any changes, we'll get that.
Yeah,
reposted.
I could ask Joe.
Adopting.
Yeah, I didn't see the agenda. What I saw was, do you want to add anything to the agenda?
Yes, yeah, I can't remember exactly what I saw.
Do you want me to give this to
To Jessica.
Jessica?
Yeah, and then she can get it incorporated, we can get it reposted once it's.
Thank you.
But yeah, we just wanted to make sure if anyone had any questions before we put this on for the 24th adoption.
Does the new trail connect the two properties, the 34 and the 40, or is there like a waterway in between? You just have this version.
We were talking
There's
about,
no way to really connect the two, right?
no, we're talking about a bridge.
Yeah.
Vicious, but
Yeah, no, I mean, that would make sense.
Joe Denny's looking into it. I don't think it would have to be a big deal.
Before, after we build the bridge to North End.
Yeah, right, well, you can actually, if I'm tired, I'm told you can
Yeah, you
walk
could
it.
kind of, it's
Well, your hip.
muddy.
Yes,
All
they'd
right.
stick, but,
Yeah, I just wasn't sure if we had a.
yeah, you could,
way to-
you have to go around to
Yeah.
get to that.
Okay.
Is there anyone who has any questions from the public? All right, thank you, Kathy. So once we get that, we'll repost it on the website, and then it should be up for a week or two until our next town board meeting and we can adopt it. All right, the next item on the agenda is planning board expansion, reviewing the draft legislation. And so it's, if you look at the agenda, it's on the flip side. It's easiest way to find it. Yes, exactly. We did have it separately, but this was just left paper. Yeah, so it's, just to read it briefly for everyone, it's the intent of the local law to increase the membership of the planning board from 5 to 7 members. It's granted pursuant to State Town Law 271, and the membership of the planning board is hereby increased from 5 to 7 members. And there's the usual severability and the effective date. So we had talked about this last week, so we will, if there's no objections, have a special meeting after the work session to set the public hearing on this.
What about me?
Howard, you're good?
Yeah, no, I'm good.
Okay, all right. Okay, that agenda item is done. You're just flying through.
Keep going.
Yeah. Continuation of evening work sessions. We had our first evening work session last week. We didn't see a spike in attendance, except for the 5th grader.
Well, learning about governance, that's good.
Yes, yes, exactly. But then it got kind of late and she had to leave because it was her bedtime. So Benjamin, you had, after that meeting the next day, expressed concerns about continuing with evening work sessions.
Yeah, it's, all it's gonna do is cause me to miss work sessions. And, you know, I was all for trying it to see how it worked out and see who showed up, and no one did. If we can find another night to do it, we can talk about that. But as far as these Tuesday night things, it's a hardship.
Mhm.
For little to no benefit so far.
I would be in favor of it going back to 1 o'clock.
I mean, I thought it was a really good idea to have evening work sessions. Then I don't, you have a conflict. I think we talked about it. It's been talked about for a while. I think it was a good thing. I don't think one work session at night, the first one, is going to be a judge of, base it on that first one evening work session. I mean, it's going to have to be incorporated into the mix with people. I don't know. I feel like it's something, it's a good thing, whatever.
I agree, it's a good thing, it's just, it's not working. But also, the people that are pushing for it, I would have been more open to that argument if any of them would have shown up. So, I'm in favor of going back to 1 o'clock until we find a better solution or reason to find another evening for it.
I thought we had agreed that we picked this time, we had laid it out until June, okay, and we were going to try it. I think one time is not indicative of turnout, okay, and particularly in the middle of January, I don't think this is really this is not a good measurement, okay? I think that picking a different date, or I'm sorry, not a different date, a different day of the week, if that's something that we have to do, we had talked about Fridays, and I thought we had settled in on that particular time frame for once a month, okay? I still think it's a good idea. I think it's something that's in progress, that it has to, I don't think we've given it any airing whatsoever, so I don't think you can make a decision on a one meeting issue. That's what I think, okay? And I think it may take a different format. Maybe these meetings in the evening should have not necessarily be a work session as much as maybe a listening session, or opening it up for the public in a different format, okay? But I don't, right now, it's a work session. I'm in favor of continuing it, okay, and once a month, okay? Now, if we have to pick a different time that matches that everyone can attend, I think that's something entirely different.
I wasn't in favor of it to begin with because these work sessions are our work sessions. So if Benjamin can't make it, then that kind of defeats the purpose of a work session for us to get work done.
Is there another alternate date, an alternate day that would work for once a month?
When we looked at it for consistency purposes, the Tuesday was the pick because it was consistent for the public to get used to the idea of a night work session. When we looked at the rest of the calendar between all the other committee meetings, there was nothing that was consistent. So it would be a Wednesday in March, and it would be a Thursday in April, and a Friday, and like it wasn't consistent. So having the people be able to attend, they like, what day is this happening again? That's why we picked Tuesday. But now it's not working.
I had no idea this was going to be on the work session. I didn't know we were discussing, it sounds like you're discussing eliminating it, okay? And I thought we had already, I thought at the very beginning of the year, we had discussed this, okay? And that we had agreed to give it a trial period. That's where I left off, okay?
The work session was the agenda was circulated on Friday afternoon.
Okay.
So you've had a few days to,
Sorry?
you've had a few days. You've had since Friday afternoon. You said you didn't know it was on the agenda, but it's been on the agenda since Friday. So I'm just pointing out that we have had a few days to think about it.
I guess I didn't understand the continuation of the evening work sessions, okay? But yeah, I still support it, okay? I think it's something that we haven't given it due diligence, okay? And I think it's too early to even make a decision one way or another.
I like your idea of having a listening session once a month. I think that should be separate and apart from the town board work session.
Mhm.
Because if we continue with this, as Amber noted, it's going to defeat the purpose of the town board work session because I'm not going to be able to be here.
Right.
And, you know, I thought it was okay to try it. The one time we tried it, it was probably one of the most critical days for me not to be here. And nobody showed up. And, you know, I'm happy to find another day once a month to do a listening session. I think that's a great idea. But to hamper the purpose of our work session for this, it's not making any sense to me.
Can you Zoom, Ben, or is it that you have other scheduled events?
Oh, no, I have another scheduled meeting.
The Zoom wouldn't, like, the rules are that he would have to publicize where his location is and invite the public to attend with him.
That'll be fun.
Yeah,
While also in another meeting, it's just not,
Yeah.
that's not realistic.
So I would actually even like to find a night to do a listening session once a month. I think that's a great idea. But to weigh down our work session with this other task, it's not gonna help the work sessions.
So you think by having no one here attend this last meeting, okay, that's, I know you can't make it, that's a different issue altogether, okay?
Mhm.
And I'm just saying, is it impossible to find one work session a month that we can do in the evening? Is that
Yes.
an impossibility?
Well,
Consistently, yes.
if you want me to be here,
Consistent.
yeah.
So basically, there's no time during the week you would be available. There's no time in the evening once a month that you would be available.
No, not at all. In fact, when we originally discussed this in January, I was pushing for Mondays. Monday's a great day for me to be here on Monday night. And we have board meeting Monday night, but that's only once a month. Well, every 3 weeks, right?
Other committees have
Yeah,
their
we've done
meetings. and that's-
Monday
that was the
nights,
issue.
yeah, there's a couple things that happen.
Yeah, there are other conflicts.
Yeah.
But, you know, Thursday, Friday could work, but there are other committee meetings on Thursday.
There's ZBA on Thursdays,
Community housing boards on
community housing
Thursday.
boards on Thursday. We've got ZBA on Wednesdays, planning board on Tuesdays, CAC on Tuesday.
Yeah, I've got the whole calendar, so.
Yeah.
Give me a date and I'll.
Unless we want to move a committee meeting,
Well, I was
No,
gonna say,
so it's like-
yeah, then we have to, yeah.
then we're gonna talk
Let's
to the
change the
committee.
whole calendar and change for the whole committee, and that's
Yeah.
kind of mean to do with volunteers after they've already committed for the year,
They submitted their schedule.
way in advance.
Yeah, and also, I mean, some of the committee people like have signed up, you know, and like, okay, I know, like, my commitment is to WMAC on a Monday night. If it gets moved to a different night, then you may lose a committee person or two because they signed up for something different.
I'm sure we can ask, but that may
Yeah.
be the result. If
Right, right. But, while I was getting the, full calendar, what was proposed?
Nothing.
Listen, I'm only one vote here, and I don't have control of this, okay? Obviously, there's a feeling that it should be changed, go back to the normal way. Okay, and I don't think we've given it any chance, that's all I'm saying to you. I don't think, and I understand that every Tuesdays create a problem, but I thought we picked on that at Tuesdays because that was something that was going to work. I didn't realize it was going to be something that every month Tuesday was an issue.
Tuesday is a problem. I said, I try to make it work and see what I can do, but it's been a problem since I was elected. The reason we moved Tuesday work session, Tuesday board meeting from Tuesday night to Monday night is so that I could participate. That's why it was moved in the first place last year.
Well, I also wanted it moved because Mondays are, if someone has a, public hearing at a meeting, they can stay over the extra day,
Yeah,
instead of
sure.
having to stay until Tuesday. So there was more than just accommodating you.
I was willing to
Sorry.
take the fall for it.
No, but I mean, it was a broader, thought process than just that. Yeah.
But, we can look at, well, you got the calendar, you got it.
Hate to say it, but it looks like Thursdays at the end of the month.
Yeah, I'm just looking to see, I was like Wednesday earlier or,
Can we leave off this way? Let me just look at this again, okay? And we don't have to do it.
Being every Thursday nights.
See, it's Meg's fault.
Thursday evenings, last week of the month at 6:30, I have meetings.
what I would suggest, if what we're really looking for is a listening session, because just to repeat what I've been saying is work sessions are for us to get work done. And it's also good for this, like, to be able to pull in staff to come in and talk to us. People can watch it via Zoom, and we have a regular host of people who watch it via Zoom. They can watch it on YouTube after the meeting. They can watch it on Channel 22. So there are ways for people to be, to listen in. Like, they're not supposed to be weighing in on every single topic. That's like, public hearings are why, we have public hearings for public input. And even, Gordon, you'd asked the other day, the week of Association of Towns, why aren't we having a work session that week? Like, we don't have enough time to do work. Was your comment for what, like, we should maybe add one that week? Like, we have so much to do. Like, I agree with you, like, not having a week without a work session is a killer because it just kills, like, doubles us up another day. So, and Pam, I see you. I'm going to call on you when we're done with the around the table. But right now is not your time. So there's plenty of opportunities for the public to observe. So if we want it to be just a listening session, then yeah, we could do it on a Wednesday night, like the first Wednesday of every month, and have just a listening session. Like, and then keep our work sessions at 1 o'clock on Tuesdays. Like that, would be in favor of.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the work session during the day makes the most sense when it comes to staffing and getting people to come in and participate. And then if you have to have someone, like if you have an expert come in, it's during their working hours. So it makes sense, it's part of their day. It's much harder when you're trying to pull them into a meeting at 8 o'clock at night. It's outside their working hours, it's a whole different situation.
So I'm in favor of going back to the 1 o'clock. Just works better.
Look, you found the first Wednesday of every
The
month
first
pretty
one's,
much?
yeah, I'm like, February 5th is open, March 5th is open, April 2nd.
6 o'clock.
Yeah, the Wednesday, this May 7th, June 4th, July 2nd, August 6th, September 3rd, roll here, October 1st.
Okay.
November 5th, we have a budget hearing work session that day because of election day, and legally we have to have the budget hearing, but we could still do something that evening.
Does that sound good?
And then December is an issue because ZBA gets bumped earlier in the month because of the holidays.
Yeah, but I still think that the first Wednesday of December is open. No, the 10th and 17th, so like go to the 5th.
I have the 3rd and the 10th.
1 out of 12 isn't bad.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, it's just by December, I think Festivus is around anyway, so.
Yeah.
So it would only be December that we wouldn't be able to do it that day.
Does that sound to you, Gordon?
Listen, it has to be, okay? If we can't get a board here, it's not going to work.
Well, it makes more sense to separate the two.
I'd rather just address it that, not on the basis that no one shows up, because I don't think it's any indication. When you do something, it's almost like doing advertising. If you advertise once, don't waste your money, okay? You need to be consistent with it, but I hear what you're saying to me, and I think a listening session to me would work as well, okay? I think we would have this, if that, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get the public to be more involved, okay? And, you know,
We're all for that.
yeah, right.
But jamming it into a work session isn't gonna get that result. So forget about the other reason that nobody showed up. But all the reasons that we just said, if we need professionals to come in, they're not gonna wanna come in at 7:30 at night. So, but a listening session separate from our work session is more productive. I mean, mainly because we move it to the evening, we're gonna miss some. And we're not gonna get the work done.
You know, it's interesting because, you know, the whole concept of having an evening open to the whole idea, okay, was that we were trying to have an evening session so it would show that someone could get involved with the town events as a council person, okay? But quite honestly, as I look at the job after only 4 weeks or so here, okay, it's almost impossible. The expectations of the town council people is overwhelming between different committees and everything else. So I think that, but I still want to review, I would like to look at this again as to how do we get younger people or other people in the community young people to participate in our government, okay? How they can run for a council seat and still have a job. The council position doesn't pay enough for someone to leave their day job, okay?
That's one.
Okay.
You're saying points to two things. That's one of them.
Right.
But for this to be really successful, this has to be an actual job that someone can live on.
Well, it has to be that, okay, or we're asking too much of our council people. We're asking them to be a scientist, all these different things. Right, exactly. Well, we have to move it in some direction. That's all I'm looking to do, is to move the ball, okay, so we can get more community members active in what's going on here in the town.
But
Both the Democrats and the Republicans talked about this and came to the town board, okay, I guess last year sometime, about, you know, wanting, I'm trying to find a mechanism here so that we can we have a lot of good people on the island that would participate, but the requirements of the job are such that it's almost built for.
And number two, make this a real full-paying job, like most other towns around us, by the way.
Well, if you had more infrastructure, you had more people, and you didn't have to be a lawyer, a scientist, a water expert, and all these other things, perhaps it would work, it would work, but we don't have that, okay? And then with all the things that are on the agenda, the agendas are just loaded with stuff from week to week to week, okay? And,
It's a lot of work.
yeah, it's a lot of work, and because we need to get things accomplished so that we can take some of these things off the plate, okay? But I still think that we still have the issue of people wanting to run for an office here in the town. I mean, looking forward, okay, how do we get other people to run to be, who wants to be in these seats?
Well, like I said, you make it a full-time job or have it be less work. I'm happy to donate my time, that's why I'm sitting here.
Yeah, and the
But
same,
that's what it is.
in the same here.
So circling back to this, I have some technical questions. If we're just going to have a listening session for the public, if there's a quorum of the board present, is it a meeting? Do we have to notice it?
Yeah.
Do we need a clerk?
It is
Do we
an
have to
open
take
meetings
minutes?
law.
There's a lot of technicalities here. So if we're going to be adding another meeting a month for 12 months, we need to figure out what the technical aspects of that are and what the budgetary increases will be for clerking and everything else. And so that's something to consider.
Yes, it is.
That's just me going through my logical steps of if I'm going to do this, what's the first thing I need to do to organize this session? I have to notify the session, I have to, and then, there's already.
We have
The quorum is
board meetings are evening sessions.
Yeah, and.
You
the
can last
public is
one
allowed
4
to
hours
speak.
and 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, the problem with that is after 4 hours, that's when we open it up to public comment because we need to get the business done and the public
first.
hearings done.
Yeah.
So by the time 4 hours, 10 minutes rolls around, it's like, who's left?
Yeah, my brain is scrambled.
Yeah, who's left and who wants to comment?
But we don't always have 8 public hearings.
No, and
But,
that wasn't
you know,
usual.
That was, we're playing catch up.
But still, I mean, we have had board meetings that last 45 minutes, 60
Yeah.
minutes, so.
Listen, I'd like to just table this and revisit it, okay? We can do whatever you want to do with it, okay, but I'm just saying to you, if it has to take a different format, it will take a different format. I think the concept of getting more people involved and having the public having more accessibility to the board, I think is important. That's that's really that's the goal here.
When is the next one, allegedly?
February 25th,
So we have some time,
yes,
because
Yeah.
let's try to avoid
we have
the
3 weeks.
the banner headline in the Shelter Island Reporter.
So meetings are moved back to
So if we're
one.
going to pick it up again, we need to pick it up next week,
Okay,
because otherwise,
I'm okay with that.
if we don't make a decision next week, then it's going to happen on the 25th.
okay, we can think about it for a week and make a decision next week. I'm okay with that.
Anything else from the table before I open it up to the public?
Yeah.
I've been patiently waiting.
Yes, she has been.
Okay, I just thought I'd sort of simplify this. When you set these meetings for a Tuesday night, there only turned out to be 8 of them for the entire year because of other scheduling conflicts. So now we've had 1. So now there's only 7 of these evening meetings that you're really discussing changing on the calendar. Now, you have 4 town board work sessions every month. So if you need people to come in to talk about certain topics, you have 3 other alternative weeks in which to have those people come in and speak before the board at a 1 o'clock meeting. But, I do believe judging last January's meeting at night, yeah, it was cold and dark and no one's really around right now. And I
Excuse me, we were
I
here.
can't see how you can really judge the first one that just took place as a judge of what it might look like, let's say in May, when
It was
people start to
dark and
show up
cold and
again, when
weird.
other things are on the agenda that they're interested in. And I just want to say this, it's the one time that people can make public comments before you go into your work session. So that is an opportunity for the public to say something about what's on their minds. And then the only other opportunity we have to do that during meetings is at the end of the long town board hearings. So there's not a lot of opportunity for people to present themselves to the town. And then you asterisk things on the agenda that will go up for legislation, so we can't talk about that. And then when you have all these conversations during these work sessions,
sometimes I feel like it would be nice if I could say something at the end of the session to say, hey, you mentioned this, could you just clarify that before we move on to the next meeting? You know, I mean, things come up and while they're fresh in everyone's minds, it would be nice to have that opportunity. So this is almost sounding like because Benjamin won't be able to make meetings and cannot vote on things 7 times, right? Only those next 7 scheduled dates that you want to do away with this. And I that's what I'd like you to consider. That's what you're really talking about. It's 7 meetings. And not everyone has to have something important that you need to vote on. And I absolutely respect that these work sessions are for you folks to do the work. And the hard work that you do is greatly appreciated. And no, the public should not interfere during your work sessions, but you shouldn't cut the public out in another way by changing this back again because one of the board members may or may not be able to be there 7 more times in the course of the year. I think that's the best way to simplify it. I hope you take it to heart and I appreciate the time to speak on it. Thanks.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you, Pam.
Is there anyone else? I just, as I'm looking at the calendar and realizing February 25th, we were supposed to have, I can't think of John's last name from New York State assessment, come in and speak to us. I don't think he realizes it's a 6 o'clock meeting.
Oh, yeah, he's not coming.
Yes, except the timing, depending, like, is bad as far as notices going out for notice of the assessment role. So anyways, but again, like that's, I'll figure out what we do there. It may not.
There's a listening session on Tuesday. I'm less worried about missing that work session.
Yeah, but anyways, I gotta.
And there were other complications with having the Tuesday night work session in January. We had to have 2 special meetings to hold interviews because we couldn't hold them after the Tuesday work session, special, executive session. So we did have to schedule extra special meetings in order to do the work that we would have typically done that Tuesday during the day. So it has more ramifications than it's just complicated.
It's not as simple as it sounds.
Right.
This is-
Yeah, exactly,
Everyone's like, oh, yeah, it's a great idea, every day.
Yeah. And even those meetings don't happen by magic.
Right. There's a lot of
Amber Cups.
coordinating and scheduling.
Christina had to make that happen. Published.
But
Anyways.
it'd be nice if we can, try to find a way to have a listening session, get more input from the public.
Yeah.
I'm all for that.
Okay, we will put this back on the agenda for next week. Stock code, review revised legislation. Let's see, I think, yes, Steve is on. We did just get yesterday a marked up draft and a clean draft. Steve, I don't know if there's anything that you want to walk us through on the changes on this draft?
Sure, I'd be happy to do that, and it might be easier to follow if I do that than searching for the changes in the clean copy. So the first thing I did was change the date, the year from 2024 to 2025. And in section 1, legislative intent, I added the following language at the end of the paragraph. Among other things, the town board intends to protect waterfront properties from exposure to inordinate wave action driven by wind and/or boat traffic, and to limit the regulated activities where the depth of water is insufficient, where the surrounding area is comprised of sensitive, pristine, preserved, or public beaches, or that would pose risks to human or aquatic life. And of course, you will recall that those were the criteria that were previously described as criteria that makes a property unsuitable. Instead, I have expressed it in terms of protected areas. Then I tinkered a little bit, just made some, in the applicability section. I just tinkered with the words a little bit. It now says, this amendment shall, previously it was expressed in the negative. It said what the amendment will not apply to. I changed it to be expressed in the positive and state what it does apply to. This amendment shall apply to all dock applications other than those for which an application to the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation was submitted prior to February 13th, 2024, which shall be which shall be subject to the regulations and reviewed under the standards set forth in Chapter 53 entitled Docks as of that date. I did wonder, as I considered that paragraph, whether merely having submitted the application prior to that date is actually the triggering event, or whether it needs to have been submitted and determined or ruled upon or concluded. Because an application can be submitted and then languish or be rejected.
Or they can submit it and have it be revised and back and forth.
Yeah, I thought it was the submission, just because for an applicant to get it to that point, they put time and money into it. But
Okay,
correct me,
well, sure.
yeah, correct me if I misheard that from public comments.
That was the thought, that whoever the applicant was had already gone through significant time and expense to get it to the DEC for review. And so instead of them going through the entire approval process just to get denied by us, it made sense.
Okay, so it still reflects that intention on your part.
Yes.
Okay. The next change, I tinkered with the wording of the definition of commercial vessel. It now states as follows: a boat or vessel used primarily to generate income, or for which a New York State or United States Coast Guard registration, license, or permit to operate as a commercial passenger vehicle is required. Period. That's what it now states. I'll continue unless I hear somebody stop me.
Okay,
No.
keep going.
Keep going.
Okay, I added a definition of protected areas. It appears between private dock and resident in the alphabetical listing. And by the way, just as a little editorial comment, I don't like legislation that is loaded with definitions, because definitions are a trap for the unwary. A law should be understood and when read in context. And if a word requires a definition, I favor defining it in context where the word is used. And many words, I think, don't require a definition. But in any event, that's an aside. This law has been drafted and prepared and vetted and worked on significantly. So I'm not suggesting that, we go back to the drawing board on this one. So protected areas are defined as waterfront properties at risk of exposure to inordinate wave action driven by wind and/or boat traffic, areas where the depth of water is insufficient to accommodate regulated activities, areas proximate to sensitive, pristine, preserved, or public beaches, areas where regulated activities would pose risks to human or aquatic life, and areas designated by resolution of the town board from time to time. I thought that you might want to have the ability to expand that list as experience dictates. And by providing that it would be done by resolution, that avoids the necessity to go through the whole extensive process that is required for adopting a local law.
I like it.
Okay, let me continue with what I did. I tried to leave as much of this alone as possible. In G of, I guess, 53 dash 7 or 6, I guess it's 6. G states that every applicant shall submit application and permit fees. The applicant shall submit the doc application to the clerk and pay the requisite fee to such pursuant to such resolution or resolutions as may be adopted by the town board from time to time. The rationale there is the same as what I mentioned a moment ago, that time goes by, inflation occurs. You may decide that the fees need to be updated. Maybe you might find that a fee is excessive at some time and want to reduce it. But this gives the town board the ability to do that by resolution. And in the next paragraph, permit issuance and terms. It previously said all applications for permit shall be subject to a public hearing except that applications to repair or maintain in kind. I changed that to replacement in kind. Isn't that really what we're talking about? A replacement in kind?
Yes.
Okay. And maybe it should be, maybe it should have said repair or replace in time, just in kind, to make the tense
Yes.
match.
Mhm.
Okay. And let's see, next.
Oh, I'm back on that 53-7, the permit issuance
Yep.
terms, A. I thought we were going to add at the end, and the town's environmental analyst, if required by the town board.
This is 53 what?
53-7A.
Oh, if we're going to add comma, if required by the town board?
Yes, that's what my notes had.
Okay. I've just added that. Okay. Continuing below that in G, I just changed conformance, ANCE, to conformity, ITY.
Mhm.
You know, I'm capable of driving in my car, listening to the radio and editing the copy that the person on the radio is reading in my head as I'm driving along. So, okay. Let's see. In I, there was just a repeated word in, IN, so I eliminated one of them. In 53-8 now, A reads, a dock shall not be designed or constructed so as to be an impediment or a hazard. I changed menace to hazard to navigation, nor constructed in protected areas as defined herein, and shall and then the rest continues as previous. Okay, and let's see. Okay, 53-13. It previously said the town board shall have the authority to modify or waive, subject to any appropriate. I changed that to the town board shall have the authority to grant waivers. And then it continues, subject to any appropriate conditions well, it says of, I guess it should say rather than of any provisions of this chapter or any provisions of this chapter, as in its judgment, is in the interests of the public health, safety, and general welfare, except where such waiver would be contrary to, I crossed out other ordinances and just left in state law, because you're the town board. If you want to adopt a ordinance, the word ordinance is an outdated term. It's really no longer used. What an ordinance really is a local law. And since you are the legislative body, you decide what local laws to enact. You don't have to be prohibited from adopting a subsequent law that's inconsistent with a prior law. You're the legislature. You decide what the laws of the town should be. So that's the reason for that change. Let's see. And then it continues, I eliminated such waivers shall only be granted by the unanimous vote of the town board. It just didn't seem to me why unanimity would be required for a waiver unless you prefer to have that back in. It
Nope, that was-
continues. Yeah. A request for such waiver shall be initiated by written request to the town board accompanied by a documentation that fully explains and supports the reason for the request. I crossed out additional information may be sought from the applicant seeking the waiver at the discretion of the town board. You don't need to say that. You can always request additional information. The town board, and I crossed out, reserves the right to seek an opinion from the Waterways Management Council. You're the governing body of the town. If you want an opinion from somebody, you're free to request it. So that's what I changed there. Now, below where there's a list of factors regarding applications for design standard waivers, the town board shall, at the minimum, consider. I just tinkered with the wording of B. B said unique site conditions. I changed that to the presence of unique site conditions or protected areas, since that is now a defined term. And I eliminated the subparagraph on unsuitable locations because we've dealt with it otherwise. Now going down to 53-18 under enforcement. I crossed out a portion of paragraph A and replaced it with other language. First, I'll read what I crossed out. Should the dock require removal, the owner shall be notified by certified mail or personal service of the town's intention to make an application to the Supreme Court, Suffolk County, for an order determining the dock to be a threat to life or property or a menace to navigation, and directing that it be removed by the town with all expenses incurred in this proceeding, and the removal to be borne by the owner and a lien upon the owner's property. I changed that to, without limiting the foregoing, the town may enforce compliance in a civil proceeding to enjoin compliance and to require removal of any dock or other structure constructed in violation of this chapter. In any proceeding in which the town is the prevailing party, the town may recover its costs, expenses, and reasonable attorney's fees. I see the word "may" needs to be "may." In the penalties section, the next one, 53-19, first there was A and B, as previously drafted, distinguished between the maximum fine that could be imposed, I guess it means for a property owner on the one hand, and the maximum fine that could be imposed for a contractor. But it's not necessary to distinguish that. It's a maximum fine. It's not a minimum fine. It's not a fixed fine. It's only the maximum fine. So to simplify it, it now just says a violation of any provision of this chapter shall constitute a violation and shall be punishable by a fine of not more than $2,500 or by imprisonment for not more than 15 days or both. And C I changed the word offense to violation, so it says a second violation within 1 year. I deleted after a prior offense shall constitute a violation under the penal law. So it now just says a second violation within 1 year shall be punishable by a fine of not more than $5,000 or imprisonment of not more than 15 days. D, a third or subsequent violation follow the same pattern within 1 year of the initial offense shall be punishable. I eliminated the misdemeanor and said shall be punishable by a fine of not more than $10,000 or by imprisonment of not more than, I changed 1 year to 15 days in order to keep it a violation rather than a crime, or both. And if the violation be by a contractor or agent licensed, it says licenses, it should be licensed with a D rather than an S, to do business in the town of Shelter Island, such license shall be revoked. Now, it says shall be revoked. Probably may be revoked would be better there, because I generally think that you want to give the court sufficient discretion to take action appropriate to the particular facts presented, considering all the factors. But if you'd like it to be shall, we can leave it as shall.
What does everyone think?
I'm okay with May.
I think may.
May.
Should be
May.
shall.
Yeah.
May.
Okay, I will change it to may. I eliminated E, which that replaced, and I eliminated G, which is now which would now be redundant. Okay, and that's it. I think that's all. Yep, that's all I did.
All right, procedurally here, if the board is good with this, I think what we were hoping to do in the special meeting after the work session was to set the public hearing on this. But there are still like a few edits that need to be, finalized in this draft. And then also, I like the idea of we've got a draft that shows the changes, which is required, but then also a clean copy draft. I think that in looking at it, there were some things that may not have gotten properly in the marked up draft from the
Right.
original legislation that were highlighted as changes. So I think Christina needs to spend some time to go through and like double check and make sure, taking the original law and the clean draft and making sure all of those edits get highlighted properly. So if she needs a day or two for that to happen, can we set the public hearing and then by Thursday, if it's possible, to get that posted?
In my opinion, you can, because any further changes that are made will not be substantive. They'll only be conforming the copy.
Okay. But you'll finish like making the edits that we did today. You'll send that on to Christina.
I'm doing that right now. Yep.
Okay, all right. And then Christina, is this putting too much pressure on you to try and get that draft that shows the changes, like in the next couple of days with all that you have on your plate?
I was gonna connect with Bill on Friday, is that okay?
Oh, he was gonna help you go through it. Is Friday too late, Steve,
For,
for getting it posted on the town website?
well, has it ever been previously posted? Have the
Generally-
continuing drafts been posted?
Yes, what we try and do is when we're setting the public hearings, we post what's going to actually be heard on the,
Right.
on the website. And then we also have to get it to the paper as well.
So as I said, any further changes that are made are just ministerial. So I think it's okay.
Okay, all right, so we have these two, the marked up draft and the clean draft on the website now, and so then we'll just replace it when we get them perfect.
Right.
All right. And we send this to the paper next Monday because we're too late for this week's paper. And that was enough time for noticing it's in next week's paper for the 20th.
Is Monday okay?
Or do they need it by Friday? That's in.
But it's doable Monday morning, it's the deadline, but they usually switch sometimes. But as of right now, it's Monday morning for the deadline to get it in for the paper for that Thursday.
Yeah, because we'd need it to be in on the 13th or the 24th. That gives us the 10-day notice. Okay. And maybe if you talk to the paper and let them know that it's coming, they'll reserve the space.
It's not the reporters, it's the classifieds or sub-icons, so you generate it through a quick ad, you can't do it.
Oh, yeah, I've tried that before, yeah, for the fire district.
The legal notice, yeah.
Okay, I guess maybe if we have.
Monday morning is over the weekend. It's pushing it.
Call a guy.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say, I've never found that person, but,
Me either, she's always shut me out.
okay.
I wanted to ask Stephen a question. I really liked the delineation of environmental areas of concern. And not to throw a monkey wrench in it, but I really thought that that was a good thing to put in the dock code.
Well, I don't think we changed anything other than the character, the label that we're giving it.
I know. I thought
it's-
that was good. I thought that was good, the areas delineated.
Oh, I see.
There's always a variance that can be granted for those areas, but it calls out 3 specific areas. I thought that was good. If there's a changeover, there will be a changeover in the board here, and possibly the WMAC as we move forward. But there's an emphasis on those 3 areas that doesn't translate just through osmosis. So I think it is good in the code, actually, myself. And call them environmental areas of concern. I
mean, if the board wishes me to do it, I can take another shot at the legislative intent portion. I can say rather than the intent to protect, I can say the board wishes to express its concern over an intention, its concern for an intention to protect the following.
I don't think that that's necessary. I think with the description that we're given, every property would be analyzed under these criteria, and I think it's actually going to broaden the number of areas that fall under sensitive
I think
areas of protection. I think you're actually limiting yourself.
I think a combination of both that we originally started with. Predefined areas and then the reasons why that are delineated. I think it's a combination. I don't know how everybody else feels. I don't know. Am I alone on that one? I mean, I'm thinking about future town board sitting here.
Yeah.
It doesn't, areas of concern doesn't have the impetus that I think it should. And it's good in conjunction with 3 delineated areas.
I don't think.
So are you not happy with what is in the legislative intent paragraph now?
I like the delineated areas in conjunction with that. I think it gives emphasis to those 3 areas.
You want to spell it out.
I want to spell it out, yes.
Okay, and
So future town boards can see those areas. And they know these areas are of environmental concern.
And those 3 areas, previously, let me find it again.
They're
So
in the unsuitable locations.
Yes, so you
Right.
want, So Albert, you'd want to add under protected areas, section A, B, of particular interest?
Hay Beach, the Real Point.
Or put it in the definitions, areas of
Oh, you wanna-
environmental,
You want to identify specific locations
yeah,
rather than describe features.
both. I'd like to do both.
Okay, so I don't think I have that information.
Well, it was
But-
there, but you decided to strike
If you go
through.
back to the original draft, or the draft from 1115, under the definition for unsuitable locations, there was section A, B, and C, Hay Beach Point, Sargent Point, Jennings Point, too.
Okay,
I think what Meg is asking is, by spelling it out, do you limit it?
Right.
Are you, as the appearance that you're limiting it to these 3 areas versus
Well-
having it open to all?
well,
I think
you can
once you limit
say,
it like that,
For example, I don't know.
no,
I
including.
know what you're
but not
trying to
limited.
do.
In the intent, if it's in the intent section and you use language like including but not limited to, I think you're leaving yourself the opportunity to expand the list later.
But not limited to.
Yeah, and that would, I assume that would be
I like
only,
that.
that, I mean, do you want me to add those specific areas to the definition of protected areas as well? Or just add them to the legislative intent section?
What were you suggesting, Albert?
I just think delineating them shows that they are environmentally sensitive areas.
But do you think it should be in legislative intent, or do you think it should be in the definition of protected areas? I think that's the question you're asking, right, Steve?
Yeah.
Yes.
One or the other, Stephen, whichever you think is best.
Okay,
I don't
then
know.
I think that, it should be in the legislative intent section.
Okay.
And the definition of protected areas should set forth the criteria for determining whether an area is protected or not.
I don't necessarily feel that I don't feel that it's necessary. I think it's more of a lightning rod than it is an actual protection for these areas. I think that the criteria really covers all the concerns in these 3 specific areas, but I think labeling them and calling them out is what caused all the ruckus with the public. And I don't necessarily feel like that's going to help move the legislation forward. I think you can achieve the goal without labeling these specific locations. I know we
you do.
disagree.
I know you do. I just, but it's up to those 3.
I think
I don't.
putting in the legislative intent is a good thing. And it's not like we all don't know what these areas are by not mentioning it. It doesn't help.
What do you think, Lori?
I like the idea of putting it in, but not limited to,
Yeah.
but not limited to. You're almost using it as an example, but not limited to.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
You got that, Steve?
Yes, so Christina, please ignore the draft that I sent you just a few minutes ago.
Look for the next one.
My apologies, Stephen.
Well, when lawyers, there comes a point when a lawyer will say, I have one more question. And it's never one more question. Okay.
So, I mean,
Set the
before
public hearing.
I was pushing to set the public hearing because I do feel like time is of the essence because we do have the moratorium expiring. And so there will be an open period. So, like, are you all good with pushing to set the, set the public hearing today and have it on
The
the 24th rather than waiting until March?
Can't set the public hearing,
Yeah, we
We don't.
because it's not, the draft isn't ready,
yeah.
and we don't have a resolution.
But that's what I was asking Steve, if like this, we've just made just some minor changes that they're scrivener's. Steve, you've gone dark.
Yeah, if it's just minor changes, then it's not a problem. And I've just looked at the prior draft that I have, and it does not have those 3 areas identified. I think when I was appointed, the document had already gone through revisions, and there was another generation after that draft that was circulated to me, I believe.
I'm looking at a draft of 1115. I thought that was the last draft. You have something newer?
We started with,
The
we started.
locations, Steve, the locations were only in the unsuitable locations definition. So they were really only called out in that one spot. So if you go to page 3, unsuitable locations, the end of that definition lists the 3 locations that Albert is talking about.
Yes, I see it now. Yes.
Yeah, Hay Beach Point
Yes.
to Real Point, Sunjik Point to Nichols Creek, and Jennings Point to Shell Beach Point.
Yep. Yeah.
That's the only place it was in the legislation.
Okay, and it's not necessary to refer to them as Section A, Section B, and Section C, am I right?
Correct.
Right.
Okay. I will make that change.
We're kind of okay, if we hear it mid-March, because that way it makes you will not schedule any dog applications from beginning of the March, the very first Monday. So they don't have the time to accept the application.
Okay, so we don't have to rush it today.
Exactly, so the
Okay.
first time they
You'd
will
rather
be
not rush it.
hearing any applications or reviewing an application in April.
Okay.
So it's gonna align with the schedule of 24 or 16.
So we're
Okay.
trying to send Tin Hill to Suffolk County to extend the
We
moratorium?
don't need-
No,
We're
we
not
don't
gonna
need
do
to.
that.
No, we don't
No,
need to do
we're not
that.
doing that.
Yeah, that
That's why
sounds
I-
like no fun.
That's whack, yeah.
Yeah.
No, and it's, yeah, if we were gonna do that, we should have done that last month.
Yeah.
Started that process. All right, so then we would be hearing this on March 17th. And depending on what we hear from the public, adopting that night or waiting until April 7th to adopt.
And run the WMAC meeting,
Or a special.
or do special.
Yeah.
So the date before March 17th is February 24th?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And we can't push that because?
Because we're pushing it, I don't know.
Let's do it.
Yeah, it depends on
Let's
what
get
the
it
rest of the
done.
board wants.
Let's get this off our plate.
You don't have a resolution.
We should do it. Resolution?
At the public hearing, you don't have a resolution ready to set it.
We can just wing it.
Whip it up really quick.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I mean, we have the bones of it in the February 1st draft. And
So
then,
messy.
you know, I mean, yeah, then it's like, we wouldn't read the whole thing anyways, because it's 16 pages. So it would be whatever we posted to the website by the end of the week. As long as, and we have it posted on the website currently, it'll just get replaced with, I don't know, I defer to you, Steve, what you think is our best course of action legally.
Well, if there will be no dock permits issued during the winter months, then there's no reason to rush it. It's always good to take the more cautious route if you have the luxury of time.
I think he's right. We're not, I think you do it right.
Okay. We need the time to clean this up, and the formatting was.
Be rushing.
nightmare. It's, I mean,
You can't even.
Perfect.
when I went through
Okay.
and did a clean version.
I thought that they would have applications coming in.
The moratorium is still in effect when they're preparing agenda, right? So there's nothing that has
Okay.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, because the February meeting was yesterday,
Probably next week.
next week.
It was yesterday, I missed it. So we put it up yesterday.
Yeah, I have it in.
And then they have March 3rd, but the agenda is done February 26th.
Right.
So anything that comes afterwards,
Okay,
review that.
Okay.
okay, all right, so we won't try and do that today. Okay. All right,
It's next Monday.
okay, I had it wrong in my master calendar. Okay. Now-
It'll be on March 17th.
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, so we will set the public hearing on February 24th to be heard on March 17th.
Right.
The next agenda item is committee memberships. When looking at the organizational meeting and even the meetings afterwards, as I started to look at who needed to get reappointed to various committees and started to look at every single committee, it was like, this seems to be a mess. We've got, like people, WAC, for example, every single committee person's term is up April 7th. That's just crazy, because if you got a town board in that wanted to just get rid of them all, we'd be doing interviews to try and replace 7 people all at once, and you'd have no
Continuity. and
continuity, institutional knowledge. And then just, like other boards where, one person's term expires in April and then someone else's expires in December. So you sort of lose like, oh, this, we have to pay attention, this person is coming off. Whereas if we kind of formalize everybody in one time period, not across all committees, so that we're not doing interviews for all committees all at once, but just for a committee that we're looking at it consistently. So Amber's pulled together some information to just give us some guidance and let us know where we stand currently, so that we can start to think about how we want to get things better aligned.
As you see, started with Waterways Management Advisory Council, established in 1992. The committee was to consist of 9 members with a 1-year term and chairman to be appointed annually.
What I find interesting there that you discovered that I didn't even realize is there's supposed to be 9 members.
There's no other changes.
And there was nothing that ever took it down to 7.
The WAC?
WMAC.
And then again, as you stated, committee members' terms are all February 1st, except for Skylar Needham, who is April 15th.
Yeah, so he should be in February 1st when we probably, I think the best course of action on some of these, like that one, we leave alone until it's time to reappoint him. But then when we reappoint him, if he so desires, and we desire, the town board desires, that we conform it to a February 1st.
Well, also, if they're all supposed to have 1-year terms, how do we have people who expire in 27?
Well,
It never followed
So we
through.
never-
Going through the book, it never followed through.
yeah,
to
so
what
we need
was-
to fix that. We need to take it to 7 members and
And give them
specify staggered
staggering,
terms.
yeah. Okay.
So, yeah, I was gonna say, we need to,
I'll send it to you. for the most
oh,
Yeah, that'd be great.
Committee could consist of 7 members.
Right.
right, so we've historically had 7 people, but when it was first established, it was supposed to be 9.
Well, do we want to
9
increase it
members.
to 9, or do we want to increase it to 9?
I've never been a liaison to that committee, but I do feel like 7, like,
It's like a
beyond,
max.
beyond 7 gets unwieldy.
Yeah, that's true, and, we have enough trouble finding.
Yeah,
people,
it
so
does. Well, the bigger the committees get, the harder it is to manage and kind of coordinate. It's tricky.
Do you know if anyone on that committee wants to come off, or do you know anyone who wants to go on?
That would be for the liaisons to tell us?
Not that I'm aware of.
Who's the other liaison?
You,
No.
No,
You were?
I was work. Oh,
Wait.
I wasn't
Oh, no,
fully
no.
taken off though. I was
Oh,
moved
no,
to
no,
second
Waterways
place.
Management
Yeah, no, that's right,
Advisory?
you two are still, yeah,
Yeah.
I
Still
didn't,
you.
yeah, when I was doing, like adding Gordon, relieving some people.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, it is still you, I think. But anyways, I can be easily found on the website.
Yeah.
So we do have like Tom Field, James Eklund, and Matt Williamson all expiring right now.
Mhm.
So we've got a 3-year
Say
stagger.
James, that might be wrong. We did reappointments. I don't think the website was updated, so this is what I took it off.
We took off a lot of those committee reappointments. Yeah, I slashed a whole bunch on the last meeting because we had such
Correct,
inconsistency. in
we
ours.
waited, yeah.
Yeah. But also, there is, when we get to WQI, that's a different thing. We've got like,
Yes, that's a whole.
like, WQI is made up of somebody from WMAC, and looking at James, who is the lead, the member who's on both committees, he's got 2 different expiring terms, so we need to fix that as well.
That's why we did.
Over at WQI, which that's what actually, I think, made me start to look at this more closely. So I think for WMAC, we, like, what does everyone think? Do we want to keep it at 7 and make that change?
I would keep it at 7 and stagger it, do like 1, 2, and 3-year terms.
Okay. All right, so we're pretty close on
2,
the,
3, and 4, I don't know, something like that.
It does need to be bigger than 7, that's for sure.
does or does
No, it
not?
does not.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we should do a resolution to keep it, to take it from 9 to 7 formally. And then
Oh, we're talking about WAC.
No,
WMAC.
MAC.
Waterways Management Advisory.
Amber has one of these for every single committee, right? Or
So
did-
far, only 8.
Oh, okay, you didn't get through
I
every.
tried.
Okay,
It's a lot of books to go through.
yeah, exactly.
Yes,
Going
I
back to-
confirm. I am the liaison to
All
WMAC.
right, so
And then do you want to keep the chairman to be appointed annually, or is that another discussion?
I think that's the only committee where we do an
Should be 2
annual
years.
chair
I was thinking
appointment.
There might have been another one, but.
It should be
That's
2
fine.
years.
That's what I was thinking, 2
Or
years.
to run with their, if
With their
it's a
term?
3-year, I mean, run coterminously with whatever their appointment is. So if Bill decided to give it up and someone else, then we go with whatever their remaining term is. That's how I think would be logical.
Either way, it's fine.
Mhm,
But 1 year is not fine.
yeah.
It's quick.
Yeah.
Counter me.
So James Eklund, Tom Field, and Matt expired 2 days ago,
Yes, 3 days ago.
3 days ago.
Yeah. But that's a different discussion as far as reappointments. This is just to get the,
So do you want chairman, counterman, usually?
Just the what, Amber?
what?
This discussion is just the what?
This is just to have, like, to figure out what we're doing, like fixing any problems.
Clean up.
Okay.
Clean up, yeah, we're not talking about individuals.
More specific, okay.
Yes, yeah, we won't,
I'm sorry, just so everybody is aware of it. A board member whose term has expired continues to serve as a holdover until their replacement is appointed, until they are reappointed or a replacement is appointed.
what if they submit a resignation?
Well, that's different, of course.
Just checking, just checking, because I think we have maybe one of those at a later committee.
Oh, I was gonna say, this committee? Not that I know.
No, a later committee. Okay, so then we're going to change it to 7, and the chairman, we're going to remove the 1-year term.
Mhm.
Right, and then 3 years. And it does look like it's, well, except for 2026, when we have 1 person expiring.
2, 2, and 3.
Right, it should be 2, 2, and 3. So we'll try and fix that going forward. So there may be somebody from the 2025 group that we only appoint for a year, just to get them into that slot, and then
Yeah.
they'll have to get reappointed the following year.
Can we add a year to someone's appointment, or is that not allowed?
Well, that's what we'd be doing, is, like, just pick on Bill, because he's the only, oh, no, he's, so
Yes.
Tom's the
Three
first
people
on the list.
expiring.
So we'd appoint Tom to expire in 2026, and then next year, then we'd have two of them, we'd have Bill and Tom
Okay,
that we'd appoint for 3 years.
making me dizzy.
We have it all figured out.
Can I make a suggestion? If you want to extend somewhat the term of a currently serving member, the way to do that is to reappoint them prospectively for whatever the additional period of time is. Because an appointment can be effective immediately, or it can be effective at a future date. So I would reappoint them, but make the reappointment effective when their current term would expire. And then you can determine what the new additional term is to get the term staggered in the way that you want.
Okay.
That's what I was asking, he just said it better.
Yes, for this one, it doesn't matter because we do have 3 people who we have to reappoint anyways. But we have some, like, as we roll forward, we'll have some of those people.
Yeah,
Like,
well, we can do
like
these
Steve.
3 now and reappoint
No,
Bill for another 2 years.
well, we're trying to get 2 people expiring in 26. We already have 2 people expiring in 27, and then we'll have 3 people expiring in 28.
There's 3 people expiring in 27.
Two. Oh,
Oh,
Unless
right,
it's just one.
Skylar,
Skylar.
you're right, Skylar.
So we need to make Bill a 20,
No, Bill's still good
Oh,
for
no.
another year.
Yeah.
So of the 3 expiring in 2025, one of them should become a 26,
26,
and
yes.
2 of them should become a 28.
exactly.
So just draw straws out of, names out of a bag.
Okay.
Whatever, I'm mixing my metaphors.
Tom Field, that's what.
He's
we
the first
could
one on the
do.
list, I know, yeah. Okay, so actually, why don't we, since we have to, we won't discuss individuals. Okay,
Mhm.
all right,
We'll just pick them out of the hat.
yes. All right, next.
Year and Tech Committee was established 2005 to serve for a term of 1, 2, and 3 years, and upon reappointment, the term shall be for 3 years. And then it was expanded and reestablished to consist of 7 members to serve for 3-year terms. And then 1 seat shall be for the representative from Mashonack that is selected by Mashonack and approved by the town board. And then in 2021, it was reduced from 7 to 5 members again,
When was it reduced?
2021.
Okay, so are we good with keeping that one at 5?
5 members with 3-year terms.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's fine.
And they're kind of staggered.
We kind of staggered already. Bo Payne comes to all these meetings, so I thought he was on the committee, actually.
No,
So-
he's an advisor to the committee.
Yeah.
Gives a report, yeah.
All right, so we'll stick with 5. 3 years is good. And then we only have 1 person
June 24th, 2026.
at the end of this year who is not a June 24th person. So I think when her term is up, she gets appointed to a June 24th
Yeah,
year.
that makes sense.
And she
Okay.
is the Mashonack Reserve
Mhm.
representative. Okay, that one was easier.
WAC was established 1986, it was dissolved in 1993 due to no expiration dates, then reestablished, appointing 5 members with terms to expire on April 2nd. So this is where the April 2nd came from.
Okay.
Since 1995, they've expired on April 2nd each.
It's 1995.
1993 was the
Okay.
resolution.
So do we want to stagger this?
All
Yeah.
right, well, first let's set, we want 7.
So it's supposed to be
Now it's
9, right?
5. Well, no, now it was dissolved, 7 was dissolved, and it became 5 members. So do we like 5?
There's 7
I mean,
people
there's
on this
7, yeah.
committee. Oh,
But
Let's make it 5.
But, yeah, and actually,
Like Joe Fenora, I don't think has to officially be on the committee.
Is that in the charter of the committee? The town
Well-
engineer?
actually, what this says is Committee of Seven was dissolved, creating a new water advisory committee of 5 members.
Yeah.
And we had 7
And there's
people there. So,
Then later, where it was again expanded years later. New members start to start.
Right.
okay,
So then, right.
We couldn't find people even to 5, then all of a sudden we had an opening and 3 people, so we expanded to 7.
so do we want to keep it at 7?
Can we do that by resolution though?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, do we want to keep it at 7, go back to 5? And then do we want Joe Fenora to be an advisor like Bo Payne is, or actually serve on the committee? Doesn't matter, voting, member, not that they vote on anything.
It feels like Joe should be an advisor
Mm-hmm,
Yeah.
because he's a town employee.
mm-hmm,
That gives us 6.
mm-hmm.
Isn't this the committee that got in this kind of trouble with, am I thinking about this wrong? With Mike Bebon?
No, that was Community Housing Board.
Housing, okay.
Mhm.
7 members in 2 years.
6 is not a good number for
No.
voting, but
Exactly, yeah.
It gotta be a 5 or a 7, I think.
But if we make Joe an advisor, then we've opened up a spot. We'll
5.
advertise an interview.
We
Or
can
if
make
we,
it
or
5.
if we go to 5, then we need to ask somebody.
Okay with 5.
I think 5 is good too. I think it becomes more productive. So how do you stagger this now?
Well, they all expire April 2nd, 2025, so I think, since we've been doing 3-year appointments, when we appoint, we don't appoint them all for 3 years, we do 1 year, 2 year, and 3 years.
Don't you want the terms to expire at a time that is consistent with the timing of your organizational meeting, so that all board appointments can be handled at the same time?
Yeah, that would be,
December 31st.
No, my problem with that is if we have turnover, then suddenly we're trying to find volunteers in the community all like in
During the
December,
holiday.
Or in January. And so just trying to schedule, that potential volume of,
It's the way they did it in the past, which is why I think they went from 7 to 5, 5 to 7, 7 to 5.
yeah, I feel like having a stagger, but if everyone in a committee expires on the same date in different years, that's easier for us to monitor.
right.
And these are then the end of the year.
But I appreciate what you're saying, Stephen.
It's a
Right,
Christmas
no,
or
I
Hanukkah.
meant that together with staggered terms, so that in each year at your organizational meeting, you would reappoint or fill a vacancy for whoever's expired that particular year.
Yes, and my point is if we have somebody from Community Housing Board who doesn't want to continue on, somebody from Water Advisory Committee, somebody from, another, CAC, then suddenly we're faced with a bunch of interviews.
It's a bottleneck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I understand.
I mean, if we're gonna take Joe off and make him advisory,
Mhm.
I would be in favor of keeping it at 7 and interviewing and getting a new member on the committee.
Five, 7, I don't,
Yeah,
I'm not sure I care that much. What do you think?
I would go to 7.
how does Joe in a advisory capacity, how does that work?
Just,
He sits there?
Yeah,
Yeah,
just like Bo
just-
Payne for
yeah, just like Bo.
Deer and Tick.
yeah.
Comes in, gives a report, gives advice,
Mm-hmm.
gives a perspective of the
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
town person.
Is it a bad thing then to have him as a member? He's there.
Well, I mean, not necessarily. you know, I think he's fine either on the board or as a, as
I think
a
we're trying to make it consistent.
advisor.
Yeah, I think you would want him to be in a neutral position.
Right.
Yeah. I mean,
Put him in as a neutral position,
That's
that's
a good
really,
point.
you wouldn't want him to vote.
And you don't want them voted.
right.
He's right, he's only making the engineering part of it.
Right, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, and he also counts towards a quorum here, which can be kind of weird. I don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he should be an advisor. But,
So now you have 2, 4, 6.
Right, so I think
Right.
adding
So
one,
then I would,
we either interview and find someone else, or we drop someone.
well, why don't we reserve making that decision, because this doesn't happen until April 2nd. The WAC liaisons
Right.
can talk to the committee and see, first of all, if everyone who's expiring wants to re-up.
Mhm.
And if we have someone who doesn't want to, then maybe we go to 5 and
Sounds good.
okay, we'll ask him.
right, so that to be determined.
Are we doing all the committees right now?
Not all, but as many as Amber had an opportunity to do the research on.
Okay,
Okay,
what's the next one?
okay.
Very
Very
steady
steady
group. We're in the process of
This was
putting some back together.
interesting. So it was established in 1988 as Shelter Island Ferry Advisory Committee. They changed the name to Shelter Island Ferry Study Group. And the committee disbanded, established as New Ferry Study Group, appointing 5 members. And then they changed the committee name to the Ferry Study Group. End of research.
Yes.
Nice.
There was no
People on this. that-
clarifying
on it.
terms, but it was every 2 years since 1988.
And at one point, there were 5 people appointed, even though there's nothing that specifies. So we should
Deal was one of them.
decide, what?
Deal was one of them.
Yes. About, yeah. So we should establish a size, because there's quorum considerations.
3.
3? We have,
Didn't we just appoint 2 people?
we have
We interviewed
somebody,
2 people.
we interviewed one person, and we have, we can appoint that person at the next meeting. So that would take us up to 3.
Okay,
Oh, these 2 people are still on it?
Yes.
yes.
Through
Okay.
2026.
Then I think we're done. Let's turn the page.
Okay, so we will just establish that as a 3-person committee, and we will appoint.
And with 2 years.
2-year
There's no
terms or?
There's no clarification, it was just, everyone was appointed 2 years.
Well, we've got 2 expiring in 2026, so
stagger
I would say the next person gets appointed to 2027. So at least we've got a,
And then reappointment, we always do like
Yeah.
2 years, 3 years.
yes, exactly. So,
Well, do we want 2 years or 3 years?
Well, if we do it 2 gives us 2027.
Yeah.
So,
and then maybe when these 2 expire in 2026,
They
maybe
get
then
2
one will go to
years.
28 and one will go to 29.
Correct.
Or we do what Steve suggested, and is we could change one of them to 2027 and appoint the new person to 2028.
To be discussed.
okay. What's next?
Next,
Next one.
LEQI.
Established 2016, consists of 5 members who shall be town residents to serve without compensation. 3 of the members shall be appointed from base town committees, specifically WAC, Community Preservation, and WMAC, and 2 members appointed from the community. Each member to be appointed for 5-year terms to be staggered, and then after the initial phase-in, 5-year terms.
Not to make this harder, but why isn't that information on the website?
I just did this morning.
And you couldn't type it in simultaneously? Because that's like useful information for the public.
And you
Which,
don't want to put it on there because
It was established and how many people and the
oh, yeah,
terms.
yeah,
Because if people are looking through the website to see if they want to volunteer for something, having that information under the member pull down could be useful.
we can make that change, but yeah, you started on this last week, but you finalized.
this night.
Oh, no, I mean, but we started talking about it and what we needed to do.
She started last night, it's still not in here.
So we've They're already sort of staggered. We
They
have
are, but the
one
problem
in-
with this is so if you go back to like James Eklund, his term expires February 1st, 2025, but if you go back to the
WMAC.
WMAC. Okay,
It's
so,
also
oh,
February.
was his the right one?
Yeah, his is right, actually. I think it's February 1st, 2025. Let me go back.
Yeah, February 1st, 2025.
Okay.
Okay, or, so he's right. How about Greg Toner on WAC?
Greg Toner,
No, he's April 4th
2nd.
or 2nd or
Yeah,
whatever it
was, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, April 2nd.
And then Tui
From
from
CPF,
CPF.
which we haven't gotten to that one
You
yet.
just reappointed,
Just
just
reappointed.
2026.
Does Tui have to be on here because he's on CPF?
Yes.
Yes, so we have to
Yeah.
pull, there's 3 of them coming from those 3 committees. So I feel like those appointments should always be in line with their base committee. And then the 2 community members, we can, so that would be,
Greg Toner.
no, Greg's on WAC. So it would be Julia Weisenberg and Elizabeth Bishop.
You might want to ask Tui whether he wants to, he as the chair wants to continue.
Or if there's someone else,
Yeah.
someone else from CPF.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll check on what Tui wants to do, and then I think there we try and fix their terms on this committee to mirror their base committees.
Okay.
Okay, Amber and I will work on that one.
PAC, established 1968, authorized by general municipal law, Article 12, Section 239X, should consist of 5 members, 3 members to serve 2-year terms, 2 members to serve a term of 1 year, all members to serve 2-year terms thereafter. Establish a new council to increase members from 5 to 7 in order to broaden community participation in 1986. In 1991, they increased from 7 to 9 members, and then in 2011, decreased from 9 to 7.
People were on this page.
I don't know what happened to the format.
So this one, at least we don't have any, but we have a few people who,
Nothing to do here, it doesn't look like.
well, yeah, we have people that need to be reappointed, like Ulrich just expired. And Petter, Paulette, and Roxanne.
They've all been spoken to, I believe, right?
Yes, yes, so we just have to, just get them fixed. And I think when, like, Chris and Ulrich have to be just moved to September.
These are 1-year terms? What are they?
Your
5
2-year
members.
terms.
Well, it says 3 members serve 2 years and 2 members serve 1 year. Is that still a thing?
That was whenever 2 years.
It's 2
Yeah, it
years.
has to be-
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll have years 3 people expire and other years 4 people
So
expire.
when they started in 1968, they needed to follow that 2 years. And then after that, everyone can serve 2 years.
All right, so now it's just 2-year terms.
Yes,
Okay.
2-year terms, yeah, okay, so we'll get that fixed.
And we'll get that stacked. Okay.
And we'll try and get the things, okay.
Are we gonna try and put this to the website or not? I mean, work for somebody.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah.
Once we clean it
But
up,
your
we
your
can.
new name is, your new name is
Let's look at
somebody.
this- Let's look at this for a minute, because like if we're looking at these bullets for CAC, I think the first one, established in 1968, should stay. Do we need to reference back to the second bullet?
No.
No, it's
No.
interesting, but no.
Yeah. I think we just need to mention that they serve 2-year terms,
And that the general municipal law, that's where their guidelines.
Yeah. And that the size of the committee is 7.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to be clear that I understood what you
Yeah.
posted, okay.
No, the other stuff.
I'll give you my slides and then you can,
No, then we have to give them access to,
Oh, yeah, give me access to the website. That'll be fun.
okay, all right, so I think we know what to do here.
All right.
CBA, established 1957, consists of 5 members, terms are staggered, obviously 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 years. Governed by Article 13 of the zoning ordinance and Section 267 of the town law.
And look,
End of history.
And a perfect committee, we don't have to do
Correct.
anything. Nothing needs changing.
Excellent.
Okay, next.
Planning Board, established 1959, powers and duties provided by town law, section 271. And 1959, it consists of 7 members, staggered terms, elect own chairman. And in 1966, they decreased members from 7 to 5 because of difficulty to obtain quorum, and successors should be appointed for 5 years. And then 1976, they increased membership from 5 to 7 to broaden community participation and representation, staggered terms. And then in 1981, decreased membership from 7 back to 5. Staggered terms.
And we're going
And
to
in
be,
2025.
we're going to be increasing it back to 7.
Right.
And we'll stagger the
And we'll
terms.
stagger
I'll add it to this line.
Yeah, so we know what to do there. Okay,
And that is all that I got
okay,
for now.
that's a good
Okay,
start.
That's
Okay.
a big one.
All right, so we have a plan, and so for the February 24th meeting, we'll have some resolutions to appoint some people, but at least now you'll understand why we're doing some of the changes that get proposed. And whatever resolutions, like WMAC, changing that from 9 to 7, and making the chairman not have 1 year. Okay. Anyone in the public, I mean, everyone at the table is good with this topic. Anyone in the public who wants to speak on this? Okay. Okay, wetlands permits, from the last town board meeting. Lumley was one of the ones that we were able to close.
Yeah, grab the wrong pile of papers. Yes, I did.
I can share. Lumley was 8 Margaret's Drive, just to refresh what was going on there.
Where's it not?
The same, you're renovating the existing house, staying in the same footprint and going up, I believe.
Albert, don't you live on this street? What's that? Don't you live on this street?
No.
No? Are you sure?
It's a loop with 2
Oh, you
different
live on
names.
the other side of the loop. Okay.
So, a public hearing, I know, it was like, it was a proposed addition holding a distance of 61.8 feet from the wetlands. Proposed deck reconstruction within the existing footprint, holding a distance of 49 feet 2 inches. Cantilevered second floor, 68.8 feet from the wetlands, and demolition of the bocce court and other items within the vegetative buffer. And Jason.
I didn't have any concerns
This
about
one
this
is
application.
okay.
This is straightforward.
Yeah, let's just see, the planning board's recommendations, the decrease of structures in the vegetative buffer and minimal increases in the adjacent regulated area were reasonable. They're upgrading the sanitary system, locating it out of the regulated area with pluses, and they approved it. CAC. Vegetation. Yeah, they.
Yeah.
Just wanted no, oh, there was new fence and vegetative buffer which impedes access to area.
But there's no permit required for fencing.
Yeah. And let's see,
No requirement for fencing, did you say that?
There's no permit requirement?
and
Do
then
we feel that we need to have like a fence for the construction to protect it?
Oh, well, silt fencing is already in the application, so yeah, there will be silt fencing. They're talking about like decorative fencing
Oh,
or
okay.
something like that, yeah. Silt fencing is already proposed.
And then the environmental analyst report had 15 items. Did you have something to say, Steve?
No, no,
Oh, okay.
Do we consider a 20-foot buffer on these applications largely? I mean, they're very impactful for runoff, really, in the wetlands. I don't know if we should, that should be,
Isn't she
For
calling
20
for a 35-foot?
That was in a different, I think that was in the bond application.
That was up from the water, yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking at her, what she put in this report. There was a new vegetative buffer plan that was submitted, so that should be incorporated.
you know, if we put a 20-foot buffer, then just submit the plan to the EA for approval. That's, you know,
Let me just see what they put in this one. All right, so they had a proposed 10 to 15 foot non-turf buffer.
Teresa's recommending.
She didn't put anything on there.
They didn't put a buffer in. That's interesting.
She was fine with it.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
but
think
since
it's a
the,
flat property.
It's 35, but it's within the body of the fence, under 5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which one was
35
it?
feet landward from the wetland boundary.
Two.
Oh, it was in the narrative, not in the
Yeah, it was in the-
stipulations or conditions.
Yeah. It's recommended that a
Oh, okay.
wetlands preservation area and natural vegetative buffer extending 35 feet landward of the wetland boundary be established.
Is this the one where she talked about splitting the difference and doing 20 feet? Is that
No,
fine?
that was it, that was cozy.
I mean, I think 20 feet is fine.
Yeah, we definitely want, since theirs says 10 to 15, we definitely want to stipulate.
Where did you see that, Ben? That,
On
Page
page
two.
2, about,
Big
Towards the
paragraph
bottom.
from the
Yeah,
bottom.
second.
yeah,
to
second
last,
paragraph
yeah.
from the bottom.
Paragraph starts with, based upon review of the applicant's submission.
there it is, that's the 35 feet. That's what I thought.
It's why it's a 10 to 15 foot non-turf buffer.
Well, that's what they are
That's what they're
proposing.
proposing.
Right.
Let me ask you something. Shouldn't we, like, I had some notes on this one, okay? I was confused with the IA expansion. The IA was put in with expansion to 50%. Could you explain that to me?
I can explain that to you. So the health department requires that every sanitary system that you install,
Right.
you designate specific space to expand the leaching of that system in the future, should it become necessary. So let's say for.
So the system is
example-
not geared for 50%?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. You just have to have a designated space in case something fails in the system and you have to add another component to it.
Change it.
It's a health.
I haven't seen that before in any of the
It's in all
applications.
of them,
Isn't it? Okay.
yeah.
And then the other one that I had was, I don't know how he got the bedroom count, and reducing the bedroom count, because when I counted it, I got different count. Because I think we have this thing where we call it something different.
the sitting room, my question is that, because you're given a mulligan, the health department gives you a mulligan on one room, a den or
Yes.
something? So I was looking at the sitting room as being that mulligan,
That,
I think. I don't know, am I looking at that wrong?
Yeah, it's based on whatever the health department defines the bedroom count as, is what we've been using, I thought. So, floor plan.
But that is an actual defined room,
Yeah,
you know,
but
where it's not a den or, that's all.
Yeah, but the health department says you're allowed to have rooms for other things,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
other than sleeping. Is this the additional or is this?
Get like one variance from a.
Yeah, like they say you always get like a living room, a kitchen, you know, there are basic rooms that they allow.
I'm calling it a mulligan, but we're not playing golf, so it's-
It's different.
So isn't it an expansion of overall living space? An expansion in the wetlands?
It's the accessory for the most part. The first floor is staying the same. The second floor is adding less, like 90 square feet, and then the accessory is adding 580 square feet.
So in the accessory unit, that where they say office, that's not a bedroom?
I think that
The health department says.
Well, they're designating it as an office. The health department calls it a bedroom for sanitary flow.
Okay.
That's one of the bedrooms in the bedroom count for the sanitary.
I thought that accessory structure was outside of the adjacent regulated.
It is.
Outside of
It is.
regulated area.
It's-
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's not really part of, it's not why it's before us.
Right, yeah. It's before us because the existing house is within this regulated area. So it's just that shaded area.
Getting back to the conditions. So
Is it common not to show the accessory garage not connected to the IA system?
It will be, I believe.
where was the sanitary plan? Well, you can see it on A001.1. But what are you looking for, Gordon?
I couldn't see, usually there should be a line connecting, I see where the new IA system is, but I don't see anything connecting it, the IA system to the accessory dwelling.
Sometimes it actually runs through the house, so the accessory will run into the primary structure, the primary will go into the IA system. If I can find the sanitary plan, I'll tell you what happens here.
It's C.1.
Yeah, so in this one, the accessory garage, you'll see that there's a septic line that runs between the accessory and the main house.
What
And then
What page are you on?
it's C1. So if you go towards the end of the packet, there's a
C1.
SCDHS design plan.
Yeah.
And it's the one with the red stamps on it.
Yep.
All the way to the back. Yeah, it's got red stamps. And so then, if you look closely at the,
See water.
yeah, there's a
10-foot
water
minimum
line, and then
between
there's a
water and
septic
septic
line
lines.
between the
Yes.
accessory garage and the house.
You're on C1 or
I'm on C1.
not C1.1, right?
I'm on C.1. This is,
It's the last part of the plans before
It's-
you get to the,
the health
DEC
department,
approval.
it's right, yeah. It's this little one, it's got all the red stamps on it. Yeah, I was gonna say.
there's two little lines right here. So you've got water there, that's a water line, and then there's the septic running in. And it's 10-foot minimum between those two lines.
Right.
Yeah.
So there won't be a separate waste line going from the accessory building into the septic system, because it's running through the house system.
It's the last page.
The last folded page.
See, it was hiding.
Sneaky. Sneaky papers.
we have access to a full set of plans. We gotta go with the building department, or do we have anything? Just these,
I didn't see that.
This line right here.
difficult to,
I have a magnifying.
oh,
Yes.
it's just.
Well, I mean,
you know,
no requirement.
right there.
That's not it.
That- That is the waistline,
I can
it's
try
just not like the water line wraps around.
Oh, that's right, okay, I didn't know.
It's not sure. It's not well overlaid, but if you look at the health department plan, it's much clearer. Yeah. There's two little lines there. So that one says water and that one says
Oh,
sewer. 10-foot minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the Belgian box curve, so it's on the, what you're looking at.
So getting back to what kind of stipulations or conditions we want to place on this. So Steve, we do want to add, what did we decide on, 20 feet,
20-foot
35?
buffer?
I think it's 20 foot, and then,
20-foot buffer.
and then I guess in terms of the resolution, PA inspection or whatever,
Yeah, she,
or approval.
yeah, she always puts that in.
He's suggesting a covenant. Fine.
Puts that on everyone.
It's not every- like, we really have to pick that up
Has to
as
be a
a
part of our resolution.
broader public.
That was a suggestion for her, for the covenant.
And I,
I don't, he had no,
just,
What's that?
got pushback on that, but at least.
As
yeah,
the
putting
covenant.
covenants in
The
the
plan,
plan.
yes.
When you say yeah, Gordon, you say yes,
I
we
mean,
should do it, or we should have a public discussion about it.
I happen to like it because I think to do it, okay, because I think things change.
I just feel if we're gonna do it, we should have a public discussion, you know, like, have the public weigh in, like, we're gonna start doing this going forward.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's a broad policy change.
On some of the wetlands, not on these, but I guess they would pick up if there were irrigation systems, I'm assuming, correct? Yeah.
The other comments that I had from the public hearing is just making sure we reference the new vegetative buffer plan, vegetation buffer plan. And then also the tropical hardwood, that was a discussion that we went into. Like right now, she's saying no CCA, creosote, printed products, ACQ, MCA, ACZA, et cetera.
Now, they said they were going to do, okay, right? That was their plan.
Yes. So do we want to just put that in there, or just put the no, what we don't want them to use, rather than specifying what we want them to use, like specifically to use something?
That's a better idea.
Yeah, I mean,
Which to incorporate it by,
We don't want them to
yeah,
use.
I agree, I prefer that,
Yeah.
rather than telling them, you must use EPA. Okay, all right, good. And then, yeah, number 15, Albert, is the final inspection by the town's environmental analyst. So she does include that on every single condition.
So condition number 3, the no fences, we have nothing in our code about you not being allowed to have a fence. And then same thing for the utilities, number 4, there's nothing in our code that says you can't have utilities. So those are just, number 4 is just a false statement, because you don't need a wetlands permit to put utilities in. It's actually one of the few things there's no permit required if you're gonna have to run a utility through that area. So even in the wetlands code, there's no permit required. If you just need to like fix your water line or something and it runs through that space, you're allowed to just do it. The thought is that it's a trench, you open it, you lay it down, you fill it, it's done in a day. But that's just, according to code, 3 and 4 are just wrong.
So we would need to, as we go through the wetlands code rewrite, discuss whether or not we want to
I
add
mean,
those.
these are, I think, are from someone else's code.
But it brings us back to the covenant question, because if we want to do this, we can put it in the covenant and they agree to it, and it's recorded in the title of the property and we're done. We don't have to worry about the code.
Yeah, but
We should
it's-
fix the code, but
My problem with that is then every time this property comes back up,
Yep.
you have to pull and look at all the covenants, and it's just more room for error. If it's in the code, then everybody has to follow the same rules. And instead of trying to make it property by property has to follow the rules, I think it just needs to be done in code so that everybody's using the same book.
I agree with you, but since the code has been fixed and we're here now.
Well, we're working on this.
Right.
We do have a working draft of revisions for the wetlands code. That's like the next thing we can pick up.
Wouldn't we also, once we put it in code, then wouldn't everybody be subject to it?
Right.
Yes.
So we'd end up scooping them up in
Well,
there.
Could be,
I mean, because right now, this 75-foot and then 100-foot is regulated on every waterfront property island-wide. So to then put a covenant saying that this area is regulated on your property, but it's already regulated on every property. So
well,
it just seems redundant.
well, for instance, if they build the fence tomorrow and we fix the code the day after,
Well, then it's
the
grandfathered.
fence is a pre-existing non-conforming use.
But so are all fences within that area, island-wide. So, it's, I don't know. I guess it's like, is
It's
it
the
worth the
time gap.
hassle?
It's the time gap that we're playing with. Is it worth
But
recording?
I don't think that a fence is gonna make or break the wetlands.
No, it's
Part of
not.
it though is if we're gonna start putting covenants on things, we have to put the procedure and policy in place for the town on how we go and process that. How we follow the paperwork trail, who's involved, are the assessors now involved because they get the deeds? Like, we're adding a whole nother branch of government into the process. I don't know how, like, we have to establish that process on how we checks and balances it.
Well, don't we, when we have new construction, don't we put like the 5-gallon permitted in the,
Yeah, we can put things like
But it's
that in the
not covenanted
resolution,
in
yeah,
the
but it's
deed.
not, it's not. a
no, isn't that in the
covenant.
deed, isn't it in the deed?
No,
No,
it's in the
it's not
resolution
recorded.
for that project. So when they do the project, that's the way it needs to be constructed. And that'll be what the CO reflects. But no, it's not on the deed.
No, for a fence, not so important, but for the vegetative buffer, a little more important.
Definitely is.
Yeah.
Well, what I was just asking is if we put in that they need to maintain a
Mhm.
20-foot buffer,
Right.
then they're not going to get sign off on it to get their C of O and, or, to get the wetlands permit closed out. And then if we fix the wetlands code to include that everybody needs to maintain a certain buffer, then everybody's subject to it.
If it's in the
Like, without
resolution that they
having
have
to-
to maintain that buffer, then should someone report that they're clearing their buffer, we have a resolution stating that you have to have a 20-foot buffer, then the building department can enforce that. Say, no, you have to replant your buffer, this is what you have to have in order to have the permit.
Yeah, I just feel like a covenant on the deed is like an extra layer of government intervention that needs to take place that we're not geared for.
Like Meg said, procedures and policy and all of that. You can't just drop it on one application.
Yeah, we have to figure out exactly how we're doing it.
Research to be done.
Okay, I mean, it's not wrong.
I mean, it sounds easy, but there
Yeah.
are people who have to be aware of what we're going to be expecting of them, and
That's why I think we should have a broader discussion before implementing it.
We should schedule that discussion.
Yeah, yeah.
So like this thing with the 5-gallon well, that's not recorded. So when a house changes, someone could change it from 5 to 10 or 20 or whatever it might be, correct?
Yes,
And if it's on the waterfront, wouldn't that have some impact on the,
well, it's in the resolution.
I mean, what's the point of putting it in?
Know that they changed them, which is like.
well, I mean, it's kind of a pain in the butt to do, to pull your well, change the pump. I mean, if you have a 5-gallon per minute pump, you're also gonna have to have storage tanks for it because it's a slow draw,
Right.
right? So then you have large capacity storage tanks. Most people aren't gonna go through the hassle of changing all that up because you're still gonna keep that,
Tanks,
Mhm.
I don't know. Yeah, I just don't. I mean, if it's on your deed still, how are you gonna enforce that? Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make a difference whether it's, I mean, it'll be checked and it'll be on the
well, it
CO.
comes up when you do a addition or a building permit.
Mhm.
It would be a time to take a look and see if it's there.
Yeah, and that'll be in the building file, like that'll be in the file for that property, and they can see what was previously approved, and then they'll see if what they currently have varies from the previous approval. That's how you cite violations.
Okay.
It is an issue, a 5 gallon per minute pump and a storage tank.
It's a
I
lot.
mean,
Yeah, it can be.
Well,
I
when you say
mean,
it's an
we're
issue, what's-
talking about saltwater intrusion on perimeter areas of the island, and we know that this is an ongoing problem, or in all likelihood will continue to exacerbate, so.
Which is why we've been putting it into the wetlands,
Into-
conditions. Yeah.
Okay, so right now, all I have is a 20-foot buffer and the new vegetated buffer plan.
Fine, right?
So
With a
striking
4-foot
three and
wide
4.
access.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah.
And striking 3 and 4.
Yes. Let's see. I mean, number 8 is, it's a feel good, but I don't know how practical it is. I mean, now you're just gonna be replacing decks every 2 years. I mean, it just doesn't, we're stripping the rainforest. It just doesn't seem practical, but okay.
It's bigger carbon footprint.
Yeah, it just doesn't, I don't know, doesn't make sense.
So the report from the consultant, the cost that it would cost us to produce this document, we at some given time, what we're going to be talking about is passing this cost on.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. And Stephen, you and I need to schedule that conversation next week, maybe?
Sure.
There it's on. That was on your to-do list.
Yep.
Would you want to do that on Monday, the day before the work session?
Oh, yeah, that's fine. We can do that.
Okay.
Time.
Could we put that on the work session? Would that be too
Maybe
soon?
Have the conversation
Yeah,
first.
okay, yeah, we'll put a pause on.
Conversation might not go well. We'll see. Yeah, name the time.
Oh, how about 11 a.m.?
Okay.
Do you want to keep 8 in? I just don't know that it's really realistic. I mean, I understand the intention behind it. I just don't know that it's realistic. And some of these products, they don't even really sell anymore.
Well, I thought we had put this same condition in others. Go back and look now, what we've been putting in.
I don't think, thought that we might have left it out.
Well, Amber, do some research over there.
So we didn't put that in.
We didn't put that in.
I feel like, I thought there was something.
I suggested something, but not that whole paragraph. Right.
Meg, that item 8, is that a DEC thing as well? No.
If it's not in wetlands, maybe it's in the dock.
Fury wasn't allowed, if something happened with Fury.
Yeah,
So,
so you
well-
do, if it's not if you can't find it in the recent wetlands, look in some of the dock resolutions that we've done.
Well,
I feel
that,
like there's something that we did have some sort of restriction, maybe not as broad as
Maybe
this.
about the skills too, I think.
But yeah, I mean,
No, Fior had very specific restrictions put on it by the DEC.
Mhm.
And its original permit was for locust posts and a bunch of other things.
Mhm.
And then what they went and did was, in violation of a whole bunch of it just didn't match what the DEC had approved.
Mhm.
So they were having to go back to what the DEC originally approved. That's where that language came in from. But for people's decks, I mean, it's not in the water, it's not a water structure. It's a little different. I just don't, you're gonna have decks rotting out within a couple of years, and you're gonna be replacing them over and over again and disturbing the area. And I think some treatment, I'm not saying like to use creosote and such, but like being able to seal your deck is probably not the worst thing in the world.
maybe we can come up with some sort of revised list.
I mean, we did have,
Parentheses.
some years ago, we had a list generated of conditions for approval on
Yeah,
wetlands applications.
Jim Colligan's list. We've used it before. It's kind of standard with me. I bet I can find it.
I'm gonna say, I mean, rather than trying to find it in the middle of the meeting.
Yeah,
Why don't we
well-
let Amber do a little research, if you want to look for that. You also talk to Teresa. Come up with something that's.
Have a consistency with conditions
Exactly,
we asked for,
yeah.
not excluding others.
Yeah. So nothing. Okay, so that's
Too wacky on this.
Yeah, so that's the one open item that we circled. And we'll get that to you, Steve, once we figure out what that list is. Air. That was the other public hearing that we were able to close. They wanted to legalize the demolition and reconstruction of 1,638 square feet of partially elevated deck and steps.
The contractor went in.
Yes. Mhm.
So one thing is they have to bring the deck up to building code. Because it
Yes.
doesn't currently meet code, so that should be a stipulation, obviously.
Yeah.
It's gonna be difficult.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, the concrete footings under the deck, but
Yeah.
those may be more easier, but it's nailed together. The supports with common nails.
Galvanized, yeah,
That,
Yeah.
the deck won't, it'll last 4 years.
right.
I mean, that's,
So in this, we want to make sure that they bring it up to building code. The only thing that was different was the stairway being narrower for the husband's condition.
Right,
Like, I
there was
think
like an
we should-
extra platform on the bottom so he could get up.
And then also that it was
And-
narrower, so you
yes.
could have both hands. So I want to build that into the resolution stating that.
I mean, build the code, because the risers are open
Right.
on the steps that you can't have. The railings, I think, are 27 or 29 inches, and they should be 36.
But that's where I'm saying that they did that specifically for the husband's condition. So they should build everything to code except for maybe the railings.
To get up
allowing
the
us to stay
Alright.
so that, and we put that in there that we're going to make an allowance.
You know what I found fascinating going through all these documents was the fact that there was a complaint on 9/7/23. The complaint was,
That they were building a deck without a permit.
yeah. And then I look at, the application was filed on 4/23/24. So I guess the question that I wanted to ask is, first of all, this was This is Michael, the complaint was filed by Michael
Gee,
G, okay? So the question I wondered to myself, where do these complaints go?
The building.
Mickey Chi
To
is
the
the
building.
code enforcement officer. So the building department received the complaint, and then Mickey Chi is the one who issued the stop work order in violation. So he works for us.
Yeah, I know that.
Okay.
Okay, so from the complaint, at that time, there was a stop order until they complied, until they complied.
It's a stop work.
Over almost 7 months later?
Yeah, so they're not, the stop work order means they weren't allowed to do anything until they get our permission to go back. So it's a stop work order until we approve this application. So they're not allowed to touch it until we sign off on this and give them their restrictions and their recommendations and requirements, until we issue a permit.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, if they're not in
This has
the
been
rush,
hanging around, this is a long time, this has been hanging.
Yeah.
This is not something new.
correct.
Right, yeah. And sometimes it just takes people a while to get it together to say, okay, what is the process I have to go through?
So when we issue a complaint like this is basically a stop order.
Yes.
And so when I asked Reed about this, he said that, he sort of indicated that Michael doesn't report to him, to the building department.
So,
Who does he report to today? He's still on staff, right?
yeah,
Who does he report to
he
now?
reports to legal.
Pearl
So,
Hill.
Pearl Hill.
To legal.
Yeah.
Yes.
So code enforcement is under the town attorney's
Mhm.
heading.
Yeah.
And because he sits back there with the building department, he lets them know, hey, I got this violation, and then they send one of the building inspectors to go and issue a stop work order.
how the inspector found that this deck was going on under construction without a building permit, and it wasn't completed. So how are they able to complete it and not be compliant?
I don't think they have. It should be at the same condition that these photographs show it to be, which is not complete. So they haven't been able to finish it.
Yeah.
And it's still currently non-compliant. It should still look like this, with the plywood and the,
That's from, that was, that.
That's what it should still look like.
That was from 23.
yeah,
So that deck sat that way. Since-
correct.
Hard to believe that.
That's the way it should be sitting.
Right.
I haven't been out here.
You're talking about a year. Over a year.
I mean, if the house isn't used all the time, it's easier to live with your deck like that. So it may not have been a priority. It sounded like they had a lot on their plate, so.
Joe Kelly has a contractor's license.
We are working on getting that board reconvened so that we can,
What do you mean he has a contractor's license?
He has a contractor's
He just got it.
with the town, yeah.
so currently,
18278.
yes, so currently, the way our code is written, if the homeowner hasn't brought him up on, or to be investigated, like, that's the way our code is written. So that's why we have to fix our code, so that we, the town, can say, hey, we are aware of this violation. We're going to bring you before the contractor license review board and either slap you with a fine or revoke your license, depending on the severity.
I mean, we're in a ridiculous position with this. He knows better. He was a building inspector. He told us he was a building inspector. He's a builder. He knows.
The digger the
did
hole.
this
you
job.
say. Digging. the
So,
digger the hole.
I mean,
I like that. Use that.
you know, and I felt bad for the poor woman, elderly woman coming here and sitting through the whole board meeting to get up and say, I didn't know. And yeah, I wouldn't expect her to know what she needed. She's relying on the builder. So
What are we gonna do here?
I think we need to make a condition that it has to be like fixed so that it's,
Brought up to current
it's
building
brought
code.
up to our current building code with
Except for
the,
the railings.
with the exception of the
Stair
railings going down the stairs.
There were fines on this?
I haven't followed up to see what happened before.
So, yeah, I
Did-
don't know if there are any
did it go to
court
court
fines,
or-
but
Yeah.
when they go to apply for the permit, so if we approve this and they go to apply for a permit, that's when they get charged, I think it's 5 times the
Mhm.
permit fee.
Yeah.
Because they started this without a permit. So that's when they would get fined in that sense.
Builder gets fined,
Uh,
not the homeowner.
well,
Oh,
I mean, this is,
That's
it's
for them
it's
to
like,
work on.
I know, yeah,
But the homeowner gets fined, that's who we have
yeah,
access
it's
to.
just
right,
wrong.
the person who, the person who
Flat out
pays
wrong.
for the permit gets fined. So it's the applicant.
I mean, it has
Unless
to be
the applicant
correct.
makes the builder.
Okay, yeah.
Mhm.
So that's between the two of them to sort out.
Mhm.
Really, any complaints we have with contractors right now, we have no mechanism in place.
Other than if we issue them violations and, but
You
that's
can
usually the
enforce it.
homeowner as well, so, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's why we will be appointing 2 people to the License Review Board at the next meeting, and the first missive is going to be get the code fixed, get the code rewritten.
Any other recommendations?
I'm looking for it.
Licensing Review Board,
Mhm.
that's different than the advisory license, the contractors licensing.
It's the same.
thing.
It's the same. It's, I've been calling it the Contractor License Review Board, but it's actually the Licensing Review Board or License Board.
She wants a 20-foot buffer, am I reading the right one? Yeah.
There's already,
Just get to our code section. Yeah, it's called on our website, it's called the Licensing Review Board. But we usually refer to it as the Contractor License Review Board.
That's different than the advisory. We're dealing with nomenclature here. The one that did interviews on, that was the licensing,
That's this License Review Board.
it's
Okay.
the same.
Yes.
which is an advisory capacity.
Yes, although
That's
they,
what we-
at the moment, can have people come through, like if a homeowner makes a complaint against a license, a licensed contractor, they're the ones who actually hear the complaints.
They're
But it's an advisory group.
No, right now,
No.
the way our code is written, that they've got a little bit more than advisory. So we want to keep them advisory and move the hearings to the town board most likely.
One of the no, I was just gonna talk to the buffer that you were mentioning, because the planning board mentions it too. It says it looks like they started working on a buffer down by the rocks, and they said that planning board says a 20-foot buffer landward of the boulder wall would be appropriate.
Yeah, so that should be part of it.
Okay, so we'll put that in.
So when we say we want it rebuilt to town code,
Building code.
building code, does that mean we're gonna require it to be dismantled?
Whatever they have to do to bring it up to New York State Building Code is what they're gonna have to do, so they may have to dismantle it, yes.
Um, And what if that dismantling?
There's a stop order on it right
disturbs
now.
the sensitive area?
So then we'd
I
have,
mean,
then you'd have a deck, if you didn't require that, you'd have a deck that's not building code safe.
I mean, I'm pretty sure he's gonna try to do whatever he can to replace it without dismantling the whole thing. Kind of like propping it up and pouring footings and I don't know, but. I mean, of course, ideally, they would have to correct it in place.
Matt stated, he gave some descriptions at the last hearing, how they can
A lot
maneuver it.
of footings and. Thank you.
You know, even if it were built with a permit that was issued by the town in error and did not comply with the code, it would still have to be corrected. There's a famous case from New York City in which a skyscraper was constructed pursuant to a permit issued by the city, and it was many stories too high. It exceeded the height limit. And the developer was required to take the building, reduce the height of the building, which meant eliminating many stories.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding the fact that a permit had been issued, you can't get estoppel against a municipality for the enforcement of its own code.
So we have a contractor who had no license, who built not the standard.
You had a license.
He has a license.
You had a license.
Has no license, okay.
Yes.
I thought he said he didn't have a license.
He did it without a permit.
Not a permit, right, okay.
You didn't have a-
So now, and we have no mechanism to, he can still continue to work because we have no.
License review board, yes. But we just interviewed people for license review.
Okay, so conditions on this, bring it up to code, with the exception of the stair rails, they can be left so that the husband can manage to get up the steps. And then 20-foot vegetative buffer. Anything else? Any other conditions that we want to put on this?
And so the posts are built with CCA.
The planning board in Teresa Mason had recommended dry wells, that there's no, actually, I don't know if there's leaders or gutters on the house.
Yeah.
I hate the heat pump. I mean, what the situation that they're in now, it's because of the building.
So is there a direct nexus between a deck and runoff? I mean, I would think so, because you have to have, I'm trying to make sure there's a nexus between what the applicant is doing and what we're requiring of them. So, if they were doing some expansion or change to the house, I'd say that's the perfect time to add gutters. For a deck, they have extra spacing so rain can go through the deck. But if the house doesn't have gutters and downspouts into dry wells, the code says they should.
Right.
So, how do we want to, how practical it is for that property? Let me see. Because a lot of the property is already in the wetlands
In the wetlands.
zone, so. Part of it is like, where could they even put a drive off?
I wouldn't know. I'm looking at the pictures now. Doesn't look like there are any gutters and leaders. Oh, wait, what's that?
No, they're on someplace there, it mentions in the application that the side deck is open for water to go through.
They're none.
This is such a weird property when you look at the wetlands lines. The only place where they could,
The dry wells up on the road, up towards it.
no, that's
No.
wetlands.
Wetlands.
The driveway goes through the wetlands. The only part of the house that's not is like that front corner to the right. But I don't know where, the problem with it is that you have to know where all of their other, like where their septic is, where you have, there's setbacks for all these things. I don't know if it's,
Yikes.
I totally understand the desire for it. I'm not
So you're looking to the east corner of the property along Ram Island Drive?
No, along the bay.
Oh, along the bay.
So if you look here,
The whole property is in the wetlands.
yeah, see,
Yeah.
look at this.
Is it,
It's just this corner where they could
There's the
possibly
wetlands right here.
put something.
There's the 175-foot buffer.
This is kind of only zone. that-
there's a large wetland alongside the house.
Right there,
Gordon's
Because they
Bay.
have
Yeah,
no
no,
place to
here's
put it.
the only,
Right.
here's the only part that's not in the
Right.
wetlands.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is this part of the house?
But this is the deck. The deck is here. Yeah.
That's the deck.
Right.
And this part.
And this will,
Because it's actually two separate.
yeah.
Yeah.
Two separate buildings.
Yes.
This is the deck, this is the deck. So it's in, the whole deck is in the, what is,
Yep, it certainly is.
The issue is requesting a dry well and gutters and leaders.
Right.
Possible.
No. Just
It's gonna be more disturbance.
to quickly answer your question, no.
Yeah.
so when the property is sold, they'll come back. They want to do an addition.
Then they get slammed with all the things. They have to upgrade the septic system, they have to put in the gutters and the dry wells, they've gotta do.
I mean, we're talking about off that deck, there's an underground propane tank.
Yeah. I'm sure everything is shoved up in that corner there.
Yeah.
It's the only space.
Yeah, if you look at the lot, it's the corner over here.
Not even to go inside their setbacks, they've got, you know.
Yeah.
This is just a pre-existing non-conforming structure.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think that's,
I mean, the, ask them to do leaders and gutters into a dry well, we have to get them a variance for the dry well.
right,
So,
or figure out siting of it, if it. If to reopen the hearing, go back and ask them to give us a plan where they site dry wells for both structures.
yeah, this is not gonna.
And then what's the roof area? How much is it actually gonna? It's not huge.
It's not huge.
It's not, yeah, that's what I'm saying, it's not huge, but it's not a ton of. I feel like the deck is larger than the house.
100-foot setback line basically covers the whole house.
Yeah. All right, so I think like replanting the vegetative buffer that they sort of have gone, add more beach grasses to their buffer,
I'm with you on that one.
and do that instead of the dry wells. That's mitigating the runoff.
What's this? There's a pump house, it's a blue driveway. That's even in the wetlands.
Only space.
Yeah, deck related.
Yeah,
That's it. That's not in the wetlands.
there's a propane tank right here.
Okay, so that's not in the wetlands. It's whatever between these two. So,
Does anyone see any other recommendations for this?
No. You talk to these people enough. Listen.
So just those three.
Check out the contract.
Okay.
So we're done with that one.
Mhm.
Chapter 60.
So for this one, chapter 60 is the SECRA code essentially. It's our environmental quality review code. I picked this one up because it's 40 years out of date, getting a lot of attention, and it's pretty outdated. So I wrote a little blurb about why we should update it. So I have that the current draft of the Town Code, Chapter 60, was adopted by the Town Board in 1986. And it was replacing the 1977 version of the code. And it was for the purpose of implementing the provisions of the State Environmental Quality Review Act, so SECRA. And it has not been amended since 1986. Meanwhile, New York State SECRA regulations have had numerous amendments, including large ones in 1996 and again in 2018. And that most recent one went into effect January 1st of 2019. And that's the legislation that the state uses. Our current town code, Chapter 60, still references the 1986 version of SECRA. So things have changed in the state SECRA. So now our type 1 list tends to cause more conflicts. And it's causing problems with wetlands and ZBA applications. So according to SECRA, you can have agencies can adopt their own additional type 1 actions. They may adjust the threshold to make them more inclusive and may continue to use previously adopted lists of type 1 actions to complete those, complement those contained in the SECRA regulations. Designation of a type 1 action may be designation of a type 1 action by one involved agency requires coordinated review, but by all involved agencies. But an agency may not designate as type 1 action any action identified as type 2 in SECRA Chapter 617.5. So some of the type 2 actions listed in 617.5 of the regulation that are encountered by us as we do permit review applications, I've highlighted them. There's a whole bunch of them, but some of the ones that, come up more frequently are the construction or expansion of a single family, 2-family, or 3-family residence on an approved lot, including utilities, et cetera. Granting of individual setback and lot line variances and adjustments, and granting area variances for single family, 2-family, or 3-family residents. So the SECRA handbook explains why a type 2 action cannot be made a type 1 action by stating that such actions have been determined on a statewide basis as not having a significant adverse impact on the environment and therefore not requiring an EIS under SECRA. So that's the state's explanation. We've had issues in the town with particular 2 items on our Chapter 60 type 1 list. Item number 4 and item 10. So 4 is projects which will induce or make possible new homes or facilities for human occupation or habitation in the flood hazard areas of the town, which sounds a lot like residential construction. So, and then the other one is any operation which may degrade or despoil a freshwater or tidal wetlands. Also super vague and hard to kind of pin down, and when it's tied to residential construction, that can pose a problem because that's on the secret type 2 list. So that was just kind of why I picked this up, because it's already come up a couple times and been problematic. So I handed everybody a copy of Chapter 60, and I went through and just highlighted all the areas where we're referencing old 1986 secret code and put in the new code references. And then some of it was changing some language. So our old code used determining significance or non-significance. Seekers changed the language to a negative declaration or a positive declaration. So I kind of changed some of that verbiage. And then, let's see. Then the other reason why I wanted to pick this up is because it defines the fees and how we're allowed to charge for the secret reviews. So if you go to 6010 fees, it kind of outlines the whole thing. And then I just added a sentence that the applicant will be required to pay said fees prior to the issuance of the permit being applied for that required the secret review, so that we won't give them the permit until they pay the fees for that. So I just wanted to lay it out there so everyone could look at it and come back with your suggestions, recommendations, ideas. For the number 4, the projects that will make new homes possible, I said the way it's worded in our current code, saying projects, sounds like we have to think of things like maybe minor subdivisions on the waterfront. Major subdivisions are already a type 1 action, but maybe minor subdivisions, I don't know. So just, it's vague, but we have to, I think, in my opinion, try to avoid being directly in conflict with the state's type 2 list. And then just the item number 10 is so very vague and subjective that it's hard to pin down. But I did send this to Steve so that he could look it over and make sure I don't have any, I want him to just make sure that I'm correctly referencing SECRA and all of that, and see what suggestions or recommendations he has. But yeah, so I just wanted to throw this out here as maybe something we can work on, because it's not a long code. It's not, and most of it is just complying with the current New York State regs.
Yeah, there were a lot of out-of-date references
Yeah.
here that make no sense.
Yeah, even if we just clean those up and leave the rest of it, just so
Yeah.
that we're actually talking about correct code.
I'd love some input from Steve on whether or not we can have our own list of type 1 actions.
Yeah.
I mean, any operation which may degrade or despoil freshwater tidal, yeah, sure, it's vague, but it also is protecting something that's very important.
But we might be able to write it in a better way that's more
Yes.
specific.
100%.
So that's, like, those are just the 2 that have been problematic. The rest of them I think are fine, but we need to figure out a way to clarify them so we're not getting stuck in problems.
Okay.
I want to just kind of avoid lawsuits that are not winnable. I also did add definitions, so I added straight from SECRA, that definition of environment according to the SECRA legislation, so that is in here along with negative declaration and positive declaration, because they were not in the previous code and they're very specific to that SECRA legislation.
Isn't one of the things, aren't one of the things we want to do is when we have residential properties on the waterfront, how can that not be a type 1?
Because that's what the wetlands.
I know, but I'm just saying, isn't that a goal to really make that a type 1? Shouldn't that be a board's position
Not necessarily, because I don't think,
if they're in the wetlands?
no, I don't think you understand the intention of SECRA.
Okay.
It has to determine that the action being taken by the applicant poses a significant negative impact on the environment.
Got it.
And so the state has said that a whole bunch of things do not cause a significant negative impact, residential construction being one of them. So that's what we have to sort out, is when is it appropriate and when is it not? And I think this can help us. do
Okay,
that.
hypothetically, we're working on another piece of property on Tuttle Drive, right?
Mhm.
Wouldn't that be a type 1?
No, not necessarily.
Well, looking at it in the wetlands, looking at where the septic systems are being put, isn't that a type 1?
The DEC already looked at it, and when the DEC gave their variance, I believe they said it was a type
I
2
thought the
action.
DEC only went from the bulkhead or from the shorefront out or waterward.
If it has a letter of non-jurisdiction, the DEC is not going to look at it. They don't consider it a negatively.
But I understand what you're saying to me, but I'm asking you though, individually, isn't that have a big significant impact on the environment? That particular building?
It might have an impact on the environment, but the question is whether or not it
The code-
rises to New York State's
Okay.
definition of a type 1 action. And in this case, I'm disagreeing with you because I don't know that it does. And the people who have reviewed it have said it does not. So Teresa Mason said it's a type 2 action. So,
I know, because that's the way the code is reading at this particular
correct,
time.
that's the way the state code reads it.
State reads it. But then again, and when you go to and again, you got the codes that are all over the place. This is something for lawyers to take care of, but like in what is this one? In 129, okay, and if you go into 129.4, item 5, it says here, additional hydrological computations and topographical and engineering studies and ecological site plan or other factual or scientific data as deemed necessary by the town board.
Right. We can ask for whatever we want to see when someone submits an application.
Exactly.
But you can't just randomly ask for a type 1 review of an application if it doesn't meet that criteria under the New York State Code.
I hear you, because that's one of the big pieces of problems we have with waterfront property is it really, although I understand you're saying legally, you're saying secret request that, but I guess I'm thinking that sometimes some of the stuff we're building is really, it does have an impact on the environment.
So
I don't know how to go around
That's
that.
why we have the wetlands permit reviews.
Right.
That's why we have wetlands. That's not what SECRA is for. SECRA is for analyzing whether or not a new petroleum processing plant in your neighborhood is going to have a significant negative impact. It's very misunderstood. So,
I have to go back and look at the secret code, because I saw it in there. There's impacts to groundwater or surface water.
Yes.
yeah, but you know, at the same time, residential construction is going to have some kind of impact, but the state has a different standard. So they're saying it's not a significant negative impact, and that they have a different classification from what you or I might consider.
I guess this is
So
where,
that's where
Steve comes in,
Exactly.
because I think that we had Oak Tree Lane, we had all these other properties, we've been living with this all along multiple times, okay? So we have to find the solution for this.
Right. I agree. That's why I brought it up.
Right. All right, good.
Yeah, that's why I brought it up.
Steve, are you still there?
I am. I'll be happy to work with the board on addressing this issue.
Okay.
Thank you, Steve. So yeah, I mean, I just want everyone to look at it, look it over, see if you have suggestions or ideas, and we'll let Steve review it, and then at a future work session, we can come back to it.
Yeah, so we work on this, but we also have to work on the wetlands. because
Correct.
That's where we can,
And we still need a resolution to be able to charge
yes.
Yes, and that,
this
Right.
study and all the money we're
Monday at
spending
11.
for.
Monday at 11.
yes. And so that's where, yeah, that's the other reason I brought that up, is because SECRA tells you how you can charge for SECRA reviews. So it's laid out there. And we just have to put a policy into effect.
So we will pick this up again next week after everybody's had a chance to go back and do some research, homework, reading, et cetera.
Sure.
Okay. We're now ready for board member reports.
And no committee meetings last week.
It was a light week.
It was
Mhm.
delightfully so.
Going through our priorities list, so Gordon and I had sort of lumped together the comprehensive needs assessment along with the municipal water systems as well as the wastewater And so we were supposed to have a meeting with Joe to sort of just like start a discussion and further, get our heads in the right place. And capital planning and grants took
Took longer.
way longer, so we're going to do that on Thursday.
Okay.
Thursday.
Yes, just the three of us get together.
Not all of us, just,
Yeah,
they're mini group.
yeah. The dot code stayed on the agenda. You've already talked about the environmental chapter 60. Wetlands code rewrite, Albert and Meg.
Yeah, I've got to,
Yeah, we have to
we'll
work.
recirculate the draft. I'll do a little blurb about the list of issues that people, because we asked the planning board and the CAC and the building department and everybody to tell us what problems they were having with the code before we started reviewing it last year. So I'll kind of try to put together a summary of that.
Okay.
And then we have a rough draft that we can send out to everybody to look at.
Benjamin's already told us about the wetlands environmental fees being passed on, and then Albert, you had zoning, chapter 133, wetlands, internal conflict.
129, yeah,
133 and 129, so,
that conflict.
so that's, are you gonna set up a subcommittee, or?
Well, the wetlands, I think we should do the wetlands
Okay.
revision first.
Okay, all right, so those go hand in
I'd like to do that first.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I think
Alright.
so. I mean,
Okay, I'll put those together, sort of like the three that Gordon and I have together,
I've already done
well,
a
mash them together.
133
Okay.
kind of minor revision that fixes some of the conflict. You want to do the both, look at them at the same time.
Just so everyone knows, the town attorney position is being posted all over the place.
Yeah.
So the job description is on the town website, so if you know of anybody to pass it on to, please solicit.
E-tip is hopefully wrapping up. Working on kind of getting all the information that we've collected and putting it into presentations for the board and the public. And so that's been a bit of a process.
NREL, part of it is kind of up in the air, given grant funding
Yeah,
troubles. So
so.
new administration has brought us.
Yeah, so we're just kind of playing it by ear. But that is wrapping up. So we've had some extra meetings to kind of go over information and we'll have something hopefully. Otherwise, I didn't really have any meetings last week.
I forgot to bring my notes from capital planning and grants, but we'll have.
That was a long meeting this morning.
It was, yeah.
That was, the jargon was unbelievable, okay? Just going back to the, the secret thing, I just was looking at something. It talks about an improved lot. So that's where that's why we need to get this straightened out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, if it meets all the zoning requirements, if it's the correct size, if it has the correct frontage and all that, then it's, yes, I agree.
What are we waiting for on Tuttle Drive? To put it back on the agenda.
They
We
sent
gave
us
them,
Yeah, they
modifications.
sent us a
Yeah.
letter, modified.
No, but we also gave them time for, written correspondence, and that period closes, I think, next week.
Okay.
Yeah, February 10th.
Yeah.
So they'll be on the agenda for next week. There's a bunch of them. That's it.
You're done? You have anything on your agenda?
I think so. We can talk about Tuttle Drive when we get there. But I went back and looked at some of the zoning board stuff. And it's a journey around this one.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment, we had people from the public talking about this with the high cost of what's going on here in Shelter Island with homeowners and so forth. I think it's really important, okay, that we get out with our full assessment. We need to get to the public that they know they have a better understanding of how the assessment works since we're going to full assessment. Okay? I just think we need to spend the time on that, okay?
We're going to bring in,
When is that going to be?
well, tentatively, it's for that 6 PM meeting, which I have to find out now. When Judith and I were talking about scheduling that for the work session, it was going to be for the 25th, but I don't know if John from New York State assessment department knows, like, if he can make it for 6 PM, or if we have to push a week. So it will be either the 25th or the first week in March.
And if you can make it, I mean,
We do
let's
it
not
at
be
1?
afraid about having one more.
Oh, yeah,
Or
no.
do it at
no.
1 o'clock if you can't make 6 o'clock, but can make 1 o'clock on the 25th?
Well, then we have to notice the meeting.
Oh,
So, but let me work it out with Judith, because she is working on it. And so
We had
I need
next
to
week.
leave her alone. Yeah, I need to leave her alone so that she can do what she needs to do.
I just think this is a very,
Oh, no,
this
she
is
and I
going to be
talked
really
about
a
it.
significant thing going on. I mean,
Usually
You-
bring
you-
it every year to explain
yeah, we've heard from, everybody's dealing with the homeowners insurances, and it's going to be a big,
People need to, it needs to be explained, she needs to get to a point, because she's just like, when I asked her, I'm like, what we really need to show people is like inland versus waterfront, like how things are changing, and if there's gonna be a shift in the tax burden. Because like this, Bert had mentioned, a couple weeks ago, or,
correct,
last week.
that's what I'm referring
Our
to.
taxes are gonna go up 30%, and it's like, no, our taxes will only go up 30% if we raise taxes 30%, and the school raises 30%, and the fire district goes up 30%, and the library goes up 30%, and the county goes up 30%.
There's
That's
there's
the,
the assessment and the rate.
exactly, and so, but once she's in a better place, we'll have John from the state helping to explain it, and then Judith can come up with some, visuals, like I'm a numbers person, to be able to say, and it's something that for the fire district as treasurer there, every year I show, like, okay, here's what is being in the tax increases for the fire district. Here's what the assessed value went up by this amount. This is what the tax rate is, and this is what the average homeowner is going to pay last year versus this year. So there are easy visuals to show people where we're headed. So we just have to make sure
But
that,
we will have raises, higher raises in certain areas
yes.
than other areas, okay?
Yeah.
I think it would be important also to have all of those assessments there for the public to review what their neighbor is, or, in the neighboring areas, okay? They're going to have accessibility to that?
yeah, because once I guess when, like, they send out the notices, so
Right.
everybody gets their property, like, okay, this is what your assessment was last year, here's what your assessment is this year. This is the increase that the whole assessment went with, like it increased, 55%, whatever it is. And then you can look at yours to say, did I go up 55% or did I go up 70%?
Correct.
And then, but normally that's a very straightforward process, but in this year, there is going to be additional information, I believe, that Judith is giving. And then the assessment role is out there for people to be able to look at, to see what their
Review
needs are.
where they are, okay?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, and it's going to be a crazy year. There are going to be so many more people, first in a period of time, coming in to talk to Judith to say, how did you get to where you are? And once in a while, like, she's able to, like, oh, right, that comp was not like, what the assumption that was made doesn't apply, and so there's adjustments that she can make, and then others where it's like, no, yours is accurate, now you need to come before the Board of Assessment Review. They're gonna be so much busier this year. It's just a given, because
We should
people,
sign a retainer with your certiorari lawyer now.
Say it again?
Just a recommendation.
yeah, I think there is somebody that we use, there is an agreement, I just can't remember what the term is.
Okay.
But yeah, we do have somebody.
Good.
I just,
For what, Ben?
Have
Tax.
a real estate tax lawyer.
I can't remember who it
That
is, but I-
represents the town, because there will be.
I don't think we can be I don't think we can be overly transparent with, or overly involved with this, because I'm telling you that this is really going to be a real big issue. So it's not like would you do it here in the town hall, or where would you, I think a lot of people are going to want to, one that will be here to listen to this conversation. The last time was only a brief overview, okay?
I think an initial meeting that just sort of puts it out there and then see, like if we need to do work, an evening meeting at the school library, school auditorium. Yeah.
That's exactly what I was
The
thinking.
problem is if we move from this location, we run into issues
Can't be a board
with,
meeting.
well, no, but just like the whole taping, like it is a big effort because we are set up
I know.
for interaction. That cannot happen over there. So we have to just think through how that process will work. But first, we need to let Judith finish what she's doing. She's on the home stretch.
These letters will be out in March, right?
Yes.
March, the beginning of March. So we really only have 28 days really to deal with it.
No, when is the,
We're February 4th right now. There's 28 days in a month, so there's not a whole lot of.
You're looking at,
what date, what's your deadline date? Like that, is that around the Board of Assessment review date?
When did the letters go out to the people?
Sometime in March.
March, that's what I'm saying, right?
So what do you
No, it's
expect
going
to
to be, well, it should be in she wanted to have the state come in and do the whole presentation February 25th because the letters should be going out March 3rd or 4th. So, and then the Board of Assessors is May 20th. So we have March, we have April, and the first almost 3 weeks in May before Board of Assessment review. So that's good, that.
You don't think it's more, if you're talking about doing this on, at the end of February 25th, and then they're getting these letters on
The next week.
the next week.
Mhm.
I'm just saying to you, you think that's enough time? I mean.
No, because some people aren't even going to focus in on it until they actually see the letter. So we do
Right.
some this is what you should expect to see with your letter. And then once people have letters and then they have real questions, then we have another session.
Another open session to the public.
Yes, yeah, because a lot of people.
Not you're not talking about going to the review process or
Oh,
going to.
no, I'm talking we have 2 months. We have March and April and a little bit of May in order to continue to help people understand what this change means to them. So.
Yeah, and also if you have the meeting with the state on February 25th, and then the letters come out in that first week of March, at the same time, hopefully the reporter will be reporting on it, so it'll come out in the reporter the same week that they get the letters.
All I'm trying to say is, I'm just saying I think it's going to be a very sensitive thing.
Oh,
okay?
yeah, no,
They're gonna look at that number, their assessed value went up, they don't realize, okay, that
Right.
their rate may go down, and I'm just,
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's a lot of misconception out there that needs to be corrected.
Right.
So we have to correct what, your taxes are automatically going up 30%. That needs to get explained and mathematically can be shown. And then the nuance of, okay, inland properties went up higher than waterfront properties, and therefore your increase is higher than this. That's a more nuanced explanation that has to be delivered.
In talking about the budget, okay, we're gonna, before you know it, budget season will be here, okay? So we have an approved budget for the year of 2025, right? How can we start to review that now? Okay, either on a monthly basis, and even though we have a signed budget which was approved, how can we look into that? How can we do some cost cutting now? Okay, even in this particular year before so we don't get to the end of the year and then we find we're going to have an 8% or a tax increase. The question I'm asking is, shouldn't we really be looking at how we can cut some of the stuff we have now, even if it's approved budget? I just got a feeling that it's going to be I think we should be looking at some of the things a little bit. We attended a meeting this morning, okay, and you saw how easy it is. Well, it's only 200,000 or it's only 175,000, okay?
Only.
So the thing is, what I'm saying to
I did not
you
use
is,
that word.
and people are working from the basis of what's in their budget, what's in their department budget. Okay, I think that this is the right time perhaps to look at things a little differently. And it's a good time, I think, to start reviewing what you have really allocated and whether or not we can trim this down a little bit so there's no big surprise comes the end of the year. And in that alignment, although, we put in this step of really signing checks, the double signatures on checks, okay? The problem is you see what's already been spent. You follow what I'm saying? The deal has already been done and we're basically where the checks are being sent. I'm looking for how can we look at these expenditures before they happen and say, hey, do we really need these things? How can we trim this thing down?
Town board members do get, and you haven't been here long enough to get them, is a department report from Shelby on a monthly basis.
I know that. I've gotten some.
Okay.
What I'm talking about is
Approve the expense before you spend it.
how can we look at it a little,
Then what you need to do is to pull the budget again and start to review areas that you think that there may have fat in it. And you can request what was spent last year. You can see what's been spent so far this year. And
I'm not really concerned about what we spent last year or the year before, or whatever. I'm saying, I'm looking at,
Are you talking about like micromanaging each and every purchase made by the
what I'm
town?
saying is, I think one of the things that we have to look at differently, it's not about what we spent the prior year. It's what we need when we go into the budget, meaning I think sometimes when we put the numbers out that we spent X number of dollars, and this is where you are to this period of time, and then you say, well, what are you projecting? What do you need in your department? I don't know whether that's a good way of doing it. I think it's better on the basis of needs, not what you spent. You follow what I'm saying, Dan?
Yeah, that requires sitting down with each department and saying what exactly is in your budget and what are you spending it on? So going to senior services and saying, okay, here's your food and, supplies, like, tell me how this is going to get spent. And like, do you need a budget that's this big with food?
That's also what we do when we're sitting there putting our budget
putting the
proposals
budget
in.
together.
We sit with you and Shelby and say, hey, I need this because of this.
But that's what you need to do is that, like, that's the level where you're going to analyze where everybody's spending.
So like we did that when we created the budget for this year. Like each department head came in and said, this is what I need this year. This is why my budget is this. Like, for example, Kevin comes in and he says, this is my exact list of expenses. This is exactly what I'm gonna have to order. This is what's gonna die and I'm gonna have to replace it. This is how much it's gonna cost. And then this is the budget I need and these are the reasons why. And it's pretty much for him to like the penny, so, and then that's his budget for the year. If something comes up,
Yeah, I mean, that's.
then
the
something
kind-
else has gotta give.
This morning's conversation, do we need this new thing? Can we deal, what I'm trying to say is, I think we're going to be getting into some really difficult times. And I think our taxpayers are going to be I think they're going to be stressed. I don't mean to be creating an alarm bell, but I guess what I'm saying is that even though we have a budget that's been approved, I'm just wondering how you can look at it again and not what we spent, but how do we control? Everybody wants. We know what everybody wants. I saw that really clear as a bell this morning. I really didn't say anything about it because I don't know. I'm new on the board and I haven't seen these things. So, what the conversation that took place was it started here, and then it's like, should we give it as a subcontract? Should we do what went on this morning is the kind of thing that I think is really important to do so that we don't just.
We should do that on a department by department
Right.
level, because each department head is the one who's going to explain how how the money gets spent within the, and when I do get purchase orders, I do ask questions.
I'm sorry?
When I get purchase orders, I do ask questions. There are purchase orders that get set aside until I get an answer from the department head on what is this for? And why are you doing this? And periodically, it's like, can we do this like differently? So.
All right.
We can have each department head come in and explain their spending.
It's an issue, particularly because of this full assessment. That's what I'm looking at. Okay, I think it's going to be, anyhow, that's my point. Okay, how do we save money? Well, thank you.
Don't have anything.
I was just gonna say, we've already made some choices that are spending money, but okay. I mean, just is what it is.
Sorry?
I said, we've already made some choices that are gonna cost us money. They're going to be expenses that we didn't allocate for in this year, so.
I absolutely agree with you. It's already been in place, okay?
Sorry.
Okay, so we will adjourn the work
Are we
session.
having an executive session?
I want to, after this next meeting, I want to have a brief executive session to go over a contract. So we'll go into a special meeting and make a motion.
Or something.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay. Want to kick us off, Albert? It's on the flip side of the,
Whereas the town board wishes to strengthen the policy of internal controls of disbursements, now therefore be it resolved that effective immediately, all disbursements made by the town will require 2 signatures. So moved.
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Be it resolved that Michelle Beckwith Donahue is hereby appointed to serve as senior cook for the Senior Center Nutrition Program at the annual salary rate of $50,700 retroactive to January 21st, 2025, for 30 hours per week with a probationary period of 26 weeks starting January 1st, 2021, 2025. So moved.
January
21st, sorry. Yeah, 21st. So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to execute a contract with the U.S. Geological Survey effective retroactively to September 24th, 2024. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Be it resolved that the town board of Town of Shelter Island hereby directs that a public hearing shall be held on Monday, February 24th, 2025 at 6:06 PM to hear any and all persons either for or against a local law entitled "A Local Law to Increase Membership of the Planning Board," which provides as follows. Section 1, legislative intent. It is the intent of this local law to increase the membership of the planning board from 5 members to 7 members. Section 2, authority. This local law is adopted pursuant to the authority granted by town law, section 271, which expressly authorizes the town board to increase a 5-member planning board to 7 members. Section 3, planning board membership increased. The membership of the planning board is hereby increased from 5 members to 7 members. Section 4, severability. If any clause, sentence, paragraph, subdivision, or part of this local law or the application thereof to any person, firm, or corporation or circumstance shall be adjusted by any court of competent jurisdiction to be invalid or unconstitutional, such order or judgment shall not affect, impair, or invalidate the remainder thereof, but shall be confined in its operation to the clause, sentence, paragraph, subdivision, or part of this local law, or in its application to the person, individual, firm, or corporation or circumstance directly involved in the controversy in which such judgment or order shall be rendered. Section 5, effective date. This local law shall take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State.
May I
So moved.
interrupt for a second before the board takes a vote on that? I think in that in the paragraph on severability, the word adjusted should be adjudged.
Oh, yes.
Adjudged. So corrected.
Thank you.
So moved.
Second,
Second,
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Before we close the special meeting, I see Stella, you have a question?
Thanks, Amber. I was just wondering if we could mention, if it hasn't been done, Waverly Place change.
Yes, yes. When you put your hand up, all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, I
Yeah.
forgot to
Oh,
mention that. Yes.
Today's your last day,
Yes.
quick.
Yes.
Everybody get in their cars.
Exactly. Last chance to drive down Waverly Place in the wrong direction. So yes, starting tomorrow, Waverly Place in the Heights will be one way going from, if you're coming from, the bridge,
Yeah.
first bridge there, you can go down Waverly Place, but if you're coming from the Chequet, the pharmacy, you will not be able to go towards the yacht club anymore, or towards the ferry. You'll have to go loop around. So,
You won't
Thank
be
you,
able to
Steph.
get on the ferry line anymore.
yes, you won't be able to cut the ferry line there.
It's got somewhere else.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for mentioning that, Stella.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
All right, so we'll make a motion to close the special meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We go back into the work session, and now I'd like a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Talk about
To talk about a contract.
contract negotiation. Okay.
Yes,
So moved.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.